The scent of pine and frost carried memories that Logan Ironheart had tried to bury for 25 years. Standing at the edge of the forest, his weathered face caught the amber light of sunset as it spilled across Greyhaven Valley. Time had etched deep lines around his eyes, not just from age, but from decades of vigilance and command. At 58, his 6'3" frame remained imposing, silver threading through his dark hair like moonlight on water. The scar that ran from temple to jawline pulled slightly at his right eye, a permanent reminder of his first tour in Afghanistan. The valley spread before him like a secret kept from the modern world. Nestled within the ancient embrace of the Appalachian Mountains, wisps of chimney smoke rose from cabins scattered through the trees, their windows glowing with warm light against the approaching darkness. To human eyes, it was merely a remote community of mountain folk who kept to themselves. To those who knew the truth, to those who shared the blood that ran hot in Logan's veins, it was Greyhaven, ancestral home to one of the oldest werewolf packs in America. Logan inhaled deeply, allowing his enhanced senses to catalog the familiar scents: wood smoke, deer trails, the mineral tang of the river, and beneath it all, the territorial markers of his kin. His large hand moved instinctively to the silver medallion at his throat, a wolf's head with eyes of amber stone, worn smooth by generations of alphas before him. He had never expected to wear it, had spent decades ensuring he would not. Yet here he stood, summoned home by necessity and tradition as the last pure-blooded Ironheart. "Welcome home, Colonel," came a deep voice from the tree line. Logan didn't turn immediately, recognizing both the voice and the deliberate sound of approaching footsteps. Samuel Jackson, his father's most trusted beta, had always been courteous enough to announce his presence to fellow predators. Even now, well into his 70s, Samuel moved with the practiced grace of a lifetime soldier. "Not Colonel anymore, Sam. Retired 3 years ago." Logan finally turned to face the older man, whose dark skin had grown leathery from decades of mountain weather. "Just Logan now." Samuel's smile revealed a gold canine tooth that caught the fading sunlight. "Not just anything anymore. You're Heir Alpha now, or will be after tomorrow night's ceremony." His expression sobered. "Your father's condition worsened this morning. The doctors give him days, perhaps only hours." Logan's jaw tightened, a complex emotion washing through him. Not quite grief, not quite relief. His relationship with Richard Ironheart had been fractured long before Logan enlisted in the Army. 25 years of silence had done nothing to heal that rift. "He's conscious?" Logan asked. "Lucid, when the pain allows. He's been holding on, waiting for you." Samuel gestured toward the trail that led to the main compound. "The blood moon rises tomorrow night. The timing isn't coincidence." The blood moon, a total lunar eclipse that bathed the world in crimson light. For werewolves, especially those of pure bloodlines, it held power beyond simple mythology. It was when pack bonds could be strengthened, broken, or forged anew. When an alpha's power could be passed to a worthy heir. "The whole valley's been preparing for weeks," Samuel continued as they began walking the pine needle path. "First blood moon in 17 years. The last one was when—" He stopped abruptly. "When James disappeared," Logan finished, his voice hardening at the mention of his younger brother. "You don't need to tiptoe around it, Sam." Samuel nodded, relief evident in his lined face. "Packs changed since you left, Logan. Younger ones have moved to the cities. Those who stayed are aging. We've had no new pups born in almost a decade." "Dying bloodlines," Logan murmured. It was a problem facing many of the old packs, the dilution of their werewolf genes, the call of modern human society pulling their youth away, the increasing threat of hunters with advanced technology. "How many remain?" 73, down from nearly 200 when your father took over. Samuel's voice carried the weight of this decline. "We need strength, Logan. Leadership. We need an alpha who understands both worlds." The main compound came into view as they crested a gentle slope. Stone buildings with heavy timber frames stood in a loose semicircle around a central clearing. The great hall, with its massive oak doors and stained glass windows, dominated the southern edge. Smoke curled from its 3 chimneys, and Logan could hear the murmur of voices inside, his enhanced hearing picking up the nervous energy of a community in transition. Several figures moved about the clearing, carrying firewood and hanging lanterns in preparation for tomorrow's ceremony. They paused as Logan approached, eyes widening with recognition. One by one, they lowered their gazes in instinctive deference to his dominant presence. Even after 25 years away, his alpha bloodline commanded respect. "Word of your arrival will spread fast," Samuel said quietly. "Raymond Stone has called a council meeting for tonight. As your father's chief advisor, he's been acting as interim alpha these past months." Logan remembered Raymond, a stern political man with ambitions that sometimes seemed to stretch beyond serving the pack. "And his daughter? Victoria was just a teenager when I left. Now 32, and every bit her father's daughter. She's become one of our strongest alphas." Samuel's tone carried admiration tinged with caution. "She's expected to challenge for leadership after your father passes, though your return changes things." They passed the training grounds where younger pack members once learned to control their shifts and hone their fighting skills. Now empty, the packed dirt showed signs of disuse, grass reclaiming territory at the edges, the wooden practice dummies weathered and listing to one side. As they approached the great hall, a slender figure emerged from a smaller building set apart from the others. Even from a distance, Logan noted the careful way she moved, head slightly bowed, body angled to appear smaller than she was, the instinctive body language of one accustomed to avoiding attention. "The librarian," Samuel said, following Logan's gaze. "Elara Nightshade, keeps to herself mostly, one of our few remaining Omegas." The woman carried an armload of ancient-looking leather-bound volumes, her pale blonde hair, almost silver in the fading light, falling in a long braid over one shoulder. She moved with quiet purpose toward the hall, seemingly unaware of their approach, until a sudden gust of wind changed direction. Her head snapped up, nostrils flaring slightly as she caught their scent. Her eyes, a startling shade of blue that reminded Logan of alpine lakes, widened as they locked onto his. Something flickered across her features, recognition perhaps, though Logan couldn't recall ever meeting her. She would have been a child when he left Greyhaven. Instead of lowering her gaze as the others had done, Elara held his stare for 3 heartbeats longer than protocol dictated, just long enough to register as unusual, before inclining her head in acknowledgement and continuing toward the hall. "Unusual one, that," Samuel murmured. "Brilliant mind, but can't fully shift. Gets halfway and locks up in pain. Pack considers it a defect, but your father kept her on as librarian and record keeper because of her memory. Woman can recall every word she's ever read." Logan watched her disappear through the side entrance of the hall, his brow furrowing. "Who were her parents?" "Margaret Nightshade. She was a beta from the Fletcher line. Father was an Omega who passed through during a summer gathering, left when Elara was born with the shifting problem." Samuel shrugged. "She's made herself useful enough, knows more pack history than anyone alive." They continued toward the great hall, but Logan found his thoughts returning to those unusual blue eyes and the lack of submission in them. There had been something familiar there, something that tugged at memories buried deep in his past. The massive oak doors of the hall creaked open as they approached. Inside, the vast space was illuminated by iron chandeliers hanging from exposed beams, candles and oil lamps casting warm light across stone walls, adorned with ancient weapons and the preserved pelts of predators. Massive fireplaces at either end filled the hall with warmth and the scent of burning pine. About 24 pack members were present, arranging tables and preparing decorations for tomorrow's ceremony. Conversation died as Logan entered, all eyes turning to assess the returned heir. He stood straight-backed, meeting their gazes calmly, projecting the quiet authority that had served him well through decades of military command. "Our Alpha returns," announced a strong female voice from the dais at the far end of the hall. Victoria Stone descended the short staircase with deliberate grace, her tall figure cutting an impressive silhouette against the firelight. Dark hair was pulled back in a severe knot that emphasized her high cheekbones and commanding presence. She wore modern clothing, tailored black pants and a burgundy blouse, but moved with the ancient confidence of a predator. "Victoria," Logan acknowledged with a slight nod. "You've grown up." Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes as she crossed the room to stand before him. 25 years will do that." She was tall for a woman, though still several inches shorter than Logan's imposing height. "We weren't sure you'd answer the summons." "He's dying. I'm the heir. There was no choice to make." Victoria studied him, making no effort to hide her assessment. "You're different than I remembered. Military life suited you, it seems." "It gave me purpose." Logan kept his tone neutral, aware of the many eyes watching their interaction. First impressions would set the tone for his return. "I understand you've been helping your father manage pack affairs. Someone had to step up while we waited to see if you'd return." The challenge in her voice was subtle but unmistakable. "The council meets in an hour. My father hoped you might join us, share your thoughts on the future of Greyhaven." Logan inclined his head. "I'll be there." Victoria nodded sharply before turning to the others. "Continue preparations. Everything must be perfect for tomorrow's ceremony." She swept away toward a group of beta wolves who had been watching the exchange with careful neutrality. Samuel touched Logan's arm lightly. "I should take you to your father first." They left the great hall through a side door that led to the Alpha's residence, a sturdy 2-story stone house connected to the main building. The scent of illness hit Logan immediately, mingled with medicinal herbs and the lingering trace of morphine. A pack healer, an older woman Logan recognized as Martha Fletcher, met them in the foyer, her face grave. "He's awake," she said softly. "The pain's bad today. I've given him something to take the edge off, but he refused anything stronger. Says he needs a clear mind." "Stubborn to the end," Logan muttered. Martha's weathered face creased in a sad smile. "The Ironheart way." She gestured toward the staircase. "He's in the master bedroom. I'll be downstairs if you need me." Logan climbed the familiar steps alone, memories flooding back with each creak of the old wood. This house had never felt like home. It had been a place of tension, of impossible expectations, of his father's perpetual disappointment. The last time he'd stood in these halls, harsh words had been exchanged, ultimatums given. Logan had walked away and never looked back. Until now. The door to the master bedroom stood partially open. Logan paused, steeling himself, before pushing it wider. The room was dimly lit by a single lamp, heavy curtains drawn against the fading daylight. The massive 4-poster bed that had dominated the room in Logan's youth now seemed to swallow the figure lying motionless beneath the quilts. Richard Ironheart had been a giant in Logan's childhood, 6'4" of solid muscle and unquestioned authority. The man who looked up at Logan's entrance was a shadow of that memory, his once powerful frame wasted by cancer, skin stretched tight over prominent bones. Only his eyes remained unchanged, amber gold and intense, the eyes of an alpha wolf. "So," Richard's voice was a dry rasp, "the prodigal son returns." Logan moved to the bedside, standing straight, hands clasped behind his back in parade rest, a soldier's posture. "Father, don't stand there like you're reporting for duty." Richard gestured weakly to a chair beside the bed. "Sit. We haven't much time." Logan sat, studying the man who had once been the center of his world, both feared and revered. Now, frail and mortal, Richard seemed smaller somehow, human. "You look like her," Richard said unexpectedly. "Your mother. She had that same way of holding herself, like you're carrying the weight of responsibility even when you're trying to escape it." The mention of his mother, dead 30 years now, caught Logan off guard. Richard rarely spoke of her. "I didn't come to escape anything," Logan said. "I came because it's my duty." Richard's laugh turned into a wet cough that shook his frail body. "Still the good soldier, always doing what's expected, even when you hate it." His eyes, though fever bright, remained sharp. "You hate being back here almost as much as you hate seeing me like this." I don't hate seeing you." It wasn't entirely a lie. What Logan felt was more complex than hatred, a tangle of resentment, pity, and the remnants of a son's need for his father's approval. Liar. Richard's mouth twisted in a weak approximation of his once fearsome smile. But a diplomatic one. That'll serve you well as alpha. He shifted slightly, wincing with pain. The blood moon comes tomorrow night. The timing is significant. So I've been told. More than you know. Richard's voice lowered, taking on an urgency that made Logan lean closer. Things are changing, son. The old ways are fading. Some want to retreat further from the human world. Others want to abandon our traditions entirely. The pack needs balance. Logan had heard variations of this speech his entire youth. His father's insistence on balancing tradition with practicality, on maintaining their werewolf heritage while adapting to changing times. "I'm not staying," Logan said firmly. "I'll do my duty for the ceremony, help establish new leadership, then return to my life." Richard's eyes flashed gold, a ghost of his former power. "You think you have a choice? The blood moon calls to our kind. The medallion around your neck marks you as heir. You can no more escape this than you can stop being what you are." "I've managed 25 years so far," Logan countered. "And how many full moons have you spent locked in a basement or chained in remote forests?" Richard's gaze was knowing. "How many times have you fought the change until your bones cracked and your skin split? Our nature cannot be denied forever, Logan. The wolf demands acknowledgement." Logan's silence was answer enough. Even with his iron discipline, the monthly transformations had been brutal exercises in self-control. Without a pack bond to stabilize the shift, each full moon became a battle against his own nature. Richard continued, his voice weakening. "There's something coming, something dark. I've felt it growing stronger these past months." His fingers plucked restlessly at the quilt. "The library, the old records. She's been helping me search." "Who? Victoria?" "No, the Nightshade girl, Ilara. She found patterns in the ancient texts, cycles, prophecies." Richard's breathing became more labored. "Find her. Ask about the Shadow Rite, about what happened to James." Logan stiffened at the mention of his brother. "James died on a hunting expedition. His body was never found." "Is that what they told you?" Richard's laugh was bitter and broken. "So many secrets, so many mistakes, mine worst of all." His eyes began to drift closed, the medication finally overtaking his determination. "Promise me, you'll speak with her, before the council meeting. Important." His voice trailed off as he slipped into unconsciousness, leaving Logan with more questions than answers. After ensuring his father was breathing steadily, Logan left the room, troubled by the cryptic conversation. The sun had fully set while he was inside, plunging the valley into darkness, relieved only by the scattered lights of the compound. Logan paused on the porch, breathing in the crisp night air, trying to make sense of his father's words. The Shadow Rite, James, secrets. The library would be in the east wing of the Great Hall, if it remained where it had been during his youth. Decision made, Logan headed in that direction, skirting the main entrance to avoid unnecessary interactions. The side door to the library was unlocked, opening silently on well-oiled hinges. The vast room beyond was illuminated only by a few oil lamps and the crackling fire in a stone hearth, creating islands of warm light in a sea of shadows. Ceiling-high bookshelves lined the walls, packed with ancient tomes, scrolls, and modern volumes alike. The air smelled of leather, parchment, and the faint sweetness of furniture polish. Ilara Nightshade stood with her back to him, carefully returning books to their places on a high shelf. She wore a simple blue dress that fell to her ankles, her pale blonde braid now coiled at the nape of her neck. She worked methodically, fingers tracing the spine of each volume before selecting its proper home. "You shouldn't be here," she said without turning, her voice soft but clear. "The council meeting begins shortly." Logan moved further into the room. "How did you know it was me?" Now she turned, those remarkable blue eyes regarding him steadily. "Your scent, pine, gunpowder, and something distinctive to your bloodline." Her gaze dropped to the medallion at his throat. "Alpha Ironheart sent you." It wasn't a question, but Logan nodded anyway. "He mentioned something called the Shadow Rite, said you'd been helping him research it." Alara's expression remained carefully neutral, but Logan caught the slight acceleration of her pulse, a tell no human would notice, but obvious to his enhanced senses. "That's not a subject for open discussion," she said quietly, glancing toward the doors. "Especially not tonight. My father seemed to think it was urgent." She studied him for a long moment, seeming to come to some internal decision. "Wait here." Alara moved to a heavy wooden cabinet in the corner, unlocking it with a key she wore on a chain around her neck. From inside, she retrieved a leather-bound volume so ancient its covers were cracked and faded. Cradling it carefully, she returned to where Logan stood. "This isn't the original," she explained, setting it on a reading table and lighting an additional lamp. "That's written in Old Norse and kept in a sealed vault. This is my translation, completed 3 months ago at your father's request." Logan approached the table, noting the neat, precise handwriting that filled the pages. "What is it?" "The Grimoire of Adelwulf, a seer from the early Viking Age. It contains prophecies, ritual descriptions, and histories specific to our kind." Alara's fingers hovered respectfully above the pages without touching them. "The Shadow Rite is described here, among the forbidden rituals." She carefully turned to a marked page, revealing intricate diagrams and dense text. "It's a mind control ritual designed to bind werewolves to a single alpha's will, not through pack bonds, which allow for free will, but through complete subjugation." Logan frowned, scanning the page. "Like some sort of werewolf hive mind?" "Precisely." Alara nodded, seemingly pleased by his quick understanding. "The ritual requires 3 key components: blood from an alpha tracker taken under duress, sap from the moonflower that blooms only during lunar eclipses, and—" She hesitated. "And?" Logan prompted. "Blood from a specific type of omega, freely given under the blood moon." Her eyes met his briefly, before returning to the text. "Your father believed someone is attempting to recreate this ritual. There have been incidents. Pack members going missing temporarily, returning with no memory of their absence. Strange wounds consistent with medical experimentation." Logan's military mind quickly assessed the implications. How would this benefit anyone? Mindless followers are of limited use. "Not mindless," Alara corrected. "Their skills and knowledge remain intact. Only their will is subsumed. Imagine an army of werewolves with military training, tracking abilities, strength, and healing, all controlled by a single consciousness." The threat assessment shifted dramatically in Logan's mind. Who would have knowledge of this ritual? Access to the original texts? Alara's expression turned guarded. "Very few. Your father, myself, perhaps Raymond Stone as chief advisor." "And what does this have to do with my brother?" Logan asked, recalling his father's cryptic words. The library door swung open before she could answer. Victoria Stone stood in the entrance, her face a mask of polite surprise that didn't reach her eyes. "Here you are," she said smoothly. "The council is gathering. We've been waiting." Her gaze shifted to Alara, then to the ancient book. "Finding our history fascinating, Alpha Ironheart?" Logan noted her use of the title, premature, as he hadn't yet been confirmed through the blood moon ceremony. "Just reconnecting with my heritage," he said, deliberately casual. "Ms. Nightshade has been helpful in filling the gaps of my absence." Victoria's smile tightened. "I'm sure. However, we have pressing matters to discuss." She looked pointedly at Alara. "The council requires the ceremonial records for tomorrow. Please bring them to the meeting room." It was clearly a dismissal. Alara nodded, carefully closing the ancient volume. "Of course. Right away." She returned the book to its cabinet, locking it securely before gathering several other volumes from a nearby shelf. As Logan followed Victoria from the library, he glanced back to find Alara watching him, her expression unreadable. Something about her tugged at his memory, a sense of familiarity he couldn't place. More troubling was the warning in her eyes, clear as if she'd spoken aloud. Be careful. The council chamber occupied the west wing of the Great Hall, a circular room with a domed ceiling painted with celestial patterns that tracked the moon's phases. 12 high-backed chairs surrounded a round table of polished oak, ancient symbols carved into its surface. Most seats were already filled with the pack's eldest and most respected members. Raymond Stone rose as they entered, a lean, aristocratic man with silver-streaked black hair and calculating eyes. "Alpha Ironheart," he greeted Logan with a formal half-bow. "Welcome home. We've kept your father's chair vacant in anticipation of your return." Logan took the indicated seat, an ornate chair with the pack's symbol carved into its high back, and observed the assembled council. He recognized some faces from his youth, now aged by decades, while others were unfamiliar. Samuel Jackson sat opposite him, offering a subtle nod of encouragement. "We are gathered on the eve of the blood moon," Raymond began formally, "to address the transition of leadership and the challenges facing our pack." The discussion that followed was predictably political: concerns about declining numbers, debates about integration versus isolation from human society, arguments about traditional hunting grounds now lost to development. Logan listened more than he spoke, cataloging alliances and tensions around the table. Throughout the meeting, he noticed Alara moving quietly around the edges of the room, delivering requested documents and occasionally whispering information to council members who summoned her. She kept her eyes downcast, playing the role of unobtrusive servant, yet Logan sensed an alertness in her that belied her submissive posture. "There is also the matter of increased hunter activity in the region," Victoria said, drawing Logan's attention back to the discussion. 3 packs within 100 miles have reported encounters in the past month. Sophisticated equipment, military tactics. "What kind of equipment?" Logan asked, his interest piqued. "Thermal imaging, signal jammers, tranquilizers specifically formulated for our metabolism." Victoria's expression was grim. "These aren't backwoods amateurs with silver bullets. They're organized and well-funded." The implications were disturbing. Most hunter groups were loosely affiliated at best, lacking resources for such advanced operations. "Have we identified any leadership, organizational structure?" Logan's military background surfaced in his questioning. Raymond and Victoria exchanged glances. "Not definitively," Raymond said carefully, "though we have suspicions about potential corporate involvement. Pharmaceutical interests, perhaps." The meeting continued for another hour, with plans discussed for the blood moon ceremony and security precautions for the gathering. Throughout, Logan felt the weight of unasked questions hanging in the air. No one mentioned the Shadow Rite, his brother's disappearance, or his father's cryptic warnings. As the council adjourned, thunder rumbled in the distance, an approaching storm matching the tension that had built throughout the evening. Logan remained seated as others filed out, waiting until only Raymond and Victoria remained. "Something troubling you, Alpha?" Raymond asked, his tone solicitous. "Many things," Logan admitted, "not least the timing of hunter activity coinciding with a blood moon gathering." Victoria leaned against the table. "We've increased patrols, established warning systems. The ceremony will be well protected." "And yet you seem concerned," Logan observed, watching her carefully. "Merely cautious," she replied smoothly. "These are uncertain times for our kind." Before Logan could press further, the double doors to the council chamber burst open. A young beta, Logan recognized him as Jack Monroe, son of his father's old friend, stumbled in, clothes torn and bloody. "Attack!" he gasped. "Northern perimeter! Hunters! They've breached the outer defenses!" Victoria and Raymond moved instantly, shifting into command mode. "How many?" Victoria demanded. "At least 12, armed with tranq rifles and some kind of electrical weapons." Jack's breathing was ragged. "They've taken down 3 of our patrollers already." Logan rose, military instincts taking over. "Evacuation protocol?" "Central compound, defensive formation," Raymond answered briskly. "Victoria, alert the fighters. Jack, get the elders and children to the safe rooms." As they rushed from the chamber, the building's alarm system began to wail, a modern addition to the ancient structure. Pack members emerged from various rooms, some already beginning the partial shift that enhanced strength and speed without full transformation. The Great Hall erupted into organized chaos. Logan followed Raymond and Victoria to a modern security room hidden behind a bookcase in the main hall, where monitors displayed camera feeds from around the compound. Several showed black-clad figures moving through the forest with military precision. "They're hurting us," Logan observed, noting their formation, driving everyone toward the central compound rather than picking off stragglers. "Why would they?" Victoria began, but was cut off by a massive explosion that shook the entire building. One of the monitors showed flames erupting from the eastern edge of the compound, the library wing. The security room door flew open as Samuel rushed in. "They've breached the east entrance. Fire spreading fast." Logan's mind raced, tactical assessment overriding all else. "They're not here to hunt. They're after something specific." A cold realization struck him. "Where's Alara?" "The librarian?" Raymond's brow furrowed. "Presumably evacuating with the others." "She wouldn't leave the archives," Samuel said grimly, "not with fire threatening them." Logan was already moving, instinct driving him toward the danger. "Secure the pack," he ordered over his shoulder. "I'll find her and any others in the East Wing." The main hall had emptied, pack members following evacuation procedures to the reinforced basement levels. Logan ran against the flow, following the scent of smoke and burning wood. The ancient timbers of the building were already catching fire, accelerated by something in the initial explosion. The library wing corridor was filled with choking smoke, the heat intensifying as he approached. Through watering eyes, Logan made out several black-clad figures moving methodically through the haze, checking rooms with tactical efficiency. Their gear was indeed military-grade: body armor, night vision, communications equipment. Logan pressed himself against the wall, controlling his breathing as he assessed the situation. 4 hunters, armed with what appeared to be specialized tranquilizer rifles, moving in standard search formation. Their objective was clear. They weren't setting the fire. They were using it as cover for a search operation. A muffled crash and a feminine gasp of pain came from the direction of the library. Logan moved silently through the smoke, using it as cover, enhanced senses guiding him toward the sound. He reached the library's broken door in time to see 2 hunters cornering Alara against the far wall. She clutched an ancient wooden box to her chest, blood streaming from a cut on her forehead. "Just hand it over," one hunter was saying, rifle trained on her. "No need for anyone to get hurt." "You don't understand what you're taking," Alara replied, voice steady despite her obvious fear. "This isn't about money or power. Some knowledge should remain buried." "Not our concern, lady. We're just here for the package." Logan moved without conscious thought, decades of combat training taking over. He disarmed the first hunter with a swift strike to the pressure point at his wrist, using the man's momentum to throw him into his companion. Both went down in a tangle of limbs and equipment. "Run!" Logan shouted to Alara, positioning himself between her and the hunters. The men recovered quickly, reaching for secondary weapons, combat knives with silver-edged blades. Logan felt the predator within him stirring, responding to the threat. His eyes shifted to amber gold, canines lengthening as he allowed a partial transformation to enhance his strength. The hunters attacked in coordinated movement, clearly trained for werewolf combat. Logan countered with military precision of his own, decades of special forces training making his movements efficient and lethal. He snapped the wrist of the first attacker, sending the silver knife clattering across the floor, then drove his elbow into the man's temple with calculated force. The second hunter managed to slash Logan's arm, silver burning into the wound and momentarily weakening him. Logan responded by grabbing a heavy oak chair and smashing it across the man's torso, sending him crashing into a bookshelf that collapsed under the impact. "Behind you!" Alara cried. Logan spun to face a third hunter who had entered from a side door, this one armed with what looked like a modified taser. The man fired, but Logan dropped and rolled, the electrified barbs embedding in the wall where he'd stood. Before the hunter could reload, Logan was on him, driving him back through the doorway and into the smoke-filled corridor. The fight was brief and brutal. Logan disabled the hunter with a precise strike to the throat, then returned to the library to find Alara kneeling beside one of the unconscious men, searching his tactical vest. "We need to go," Logan urged, aware of the fire spreading rapidly outside the room. The whole wing could collapse. "One moment," she insisted, pulling a small device from the hunter's pocket. "Tracking beacon. They're coordinating with someone outside." She pocketed the device, then grabbed the wooden box she'd been protecting. "We can't leave through the main building. The fire's too intense. Is there another way out?" Alara nodded, moving to a section of paneled wall that appeared identical to the rest. "Old escape tunnel, built during Prohibition when the pack smuggled whiskey through these mountains." She pressed a hidden mechanism, and a section of shelving swung outward, revealing a narrow stone staircase descending into darkness. The sounds of more hunters approaching echoed from the corridor. Logan made a swift decision, grabbing Alara's arm and pulling her toward the secret passage. "Go. I'll follow and seal it behind us." They descended into cool darkness, the sounds of fighting and fire fading above them. Logan pulled the hidden door closed, hearing an ancient locking mechanism engage. The passage was pitch black to human eyes, but both could see clearly with their enhanced vision. A narrow tunnel carved through bedrock, leading away from the compound. "This comes out near the river, about half a mile from the main buildings," Alara explained as they moved quickly through the confined space. "It hasn't been used in decades, but it should still be clear." Logan studied her as they walked, the determined set of her jaw, the protective way she cradled the wooden box, the calm efficiency of her movements despite the danger. This was not the behavior of a submissive Omega. "What's in the box?" he asked. Alara's steps faltered briefly. "Something they can't be allowed to have. The key to the Shadow Rite, an ancient artifact called the Moon Shard. Your father had me researching it for months." "And the hunters want it for this mind control ritual?" "Not the hunters themselves, whoever sent them." Her voice took on a bitter edge. "They're just mercenaries, well-trained ones." They continued in silence for several minutes, the tunnel gradually sloping upward. Finally, they reached an iron-bound wooden door, partially hidden by roots and earth. Logan pushed it open carefully, senses alert for any threat. They emerged into the forest about 100 yards from the riverbank. In the distance, they could see the glow of fire and hear the chaotic sounds of fighting. The storm that had threatened earlier had arrived, rain beginning to fall in heavy drops that hissed against the hot timber of burning buildings. "We need to circle back, help the others," Logan said, already turning toward the compound. Alara caught his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "No, that's exactly what they want, to drive you back into the trap." Her eyes glinted in the darkness. "This isn't just an attack, Logan. It's a calculated move against your bloodline specifically. They knew about the blood moon, about the succession ceremony. They want the Ironheart Alpha power." Thunder cracked overhead as the storm intensified, rain now falling in sheets that quickly soaked them both. Lightning illuminated Alara's face in stark relief, revealing a determined expression at odds with her supposed submissive nature. Logan narrowed his eyes, decades of combat experience making him wary. "How do you know all this? Why target me specifically?" Instead of answering, Alara opened the wooden box, revealing an object that made Logan's breath catch. A crystal shard about the size of his palm, clear as diamond, but with a core that seemed to pulse with captured moonlight. Even through the storm clouds, it somehow caught and magnified the hidden moon's power. "Because of what you are," she said softly. "The last, pure-blooded Ironheart Alpha, the only one who can activate this properly." Her eyes met his, knowledge and secrets swimming in their blue depths. "And because of what happened 25 years ago, the night you left Greyhaven, the night I saw you first change, a full alpha transformation at only 18, the night your brother disappeared." Memory crashed through Logan's mind, fragments of a night he'd spent decades trying to forget. His father's rage, his brother's fear, a young girl with pale hair witnessing his shame and fury. Before he could respond, howls erupted from multiple directions, the hunting cry of werewolves on the offensive. Not pack members, Logan realized with a chill. These howls carried a wrong note, a discord that raised hackles on his neck. Controlled wolves, hunting them. "They've found us," Alara whispered, fear finally breaking through her composed exterior. They have trackers of their own. Logan made an instant decision, grabbing her hand and pulling her toward the river. Then we need to mask our scent. Come on. As they ran through the storm-lashed forest, howls closing in from behind, Logan felt the weight of his father's medallion against his chest, the burden of leadership he'd spent 25 years avoiding. Whatever was happening, whatever secrets still lay hidden, one truth had become crystal clear. He was Greyhaven's alpha now, whether he wanted it or not. And something was coming, something that threatened not just his pack, but perhaps all of their kind. The storm's fury mirrored his own rising anger as they raced toward the raging river, two fugitives fleeing forces they didn't fully understand, bound together by secrets long buried and a power neither had chosen. Behind them, the howls grew closer, hungry and relentless. The river roared beneath them, swollen by the storm's fury, as Logan and Alara fought their way across slippery rocks. Cold water surged around their ankles, threatening to sweep them downstream with each precarious step. Logan's enhanced strength kept them balanced, one arm locked around Alara's waist, while the other gripped boulder after boulder. "There!" Alara shouted over the storm, pointing to a narrow opening in the cliff face on the opposite bank. "The old healer's cave. We'll be safe there." They reached the far shore as lightning split the sky, briefly illuminating the forest behind them. Dark figures moved among the trees, some upright like men, others low to the ground in wolf form. The discord in their movements was visible even from a distance, jerky, puppet-like motions that betrayed minds not fully their own. "Controlled wolves," Logan muttered, pulling Alara toward the cave entrance. "Someone's already implementing the shadow rite, aren't they?" "An early version," she confirmed, clutching the wooden box containing the moon shard. "Crude but effective. Limited duration. Requires regular doses. Your father suspected they've been experimenting for months." The cave entrance was barely visible, concealed behind a curtain of hanging vines and weathered by centuries of river floods. Inside, the narrow passage quickly widened into a surprisingly spacious chamber. Ancient runes carved into the stone walls glowed with faint blue luminescence, providing just enough light to navigate by. "What is this place?" Logan asked, surveying the circular chamber with its stone altar in the center and shelves carved directly into the rock walls. "One of our oldest sacred spaces, a healing sanctuary and emergency shelter since before the European colonization." Alara moved with practiced familiarity, retrieving dry firewood from a stone cache and arranging it in a fire pit near the center of the chamber. "The pack has several such places scattered throughout the territory. Most have been forgotten by all except the archivists and the oldest members." Logan removed his soaked jacket, wringing water from the heavy fabric. "And naturally, you know them all." A ghost of a smile touched her lips as she struck a match, coaxing the fire to life. "I've made it my business to know what others forget. Knowledge abandoned is knowledge lost." The warmth of the growing fire began to push back the cave's chill. Logan's enhanced senses detected no pursuit. The river had done its job, washing away their scent. For now, at least, they were safe. Alara seemed to read his thoughts. "They won't find us here. The runes on the walls create a barrier that masks scents and sounds. Old magic, from when our kind still remembered such things." Logan studied her as she moved around the cave, gathering supplies with quiet efficiency. In the firelight, her pale blonde hair had taken on a silvery gold sheen, and her movements revealed a grace that belied her supposed defect. There was nothing submissive in her bearing now. Away from the pack, she carried herself with confidence and purpose. "You said you saw me the night I left," Logan said finally, breaking the silence between them. "You would have been what, a teenager?" 17, she confirmed, settling across from him at the fire. "I was collecting moonflowers in the forest. They're essential components in many of our oldest healing remedies. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I'd discovered a patch growing near the old boundary stones." Her eyes met his, steady and clear in the flickering light. "I witnessed your argument with your father, saw what happened when he told you about the arranged mating with Victoria Stone. Saw your transformation, the full alpha shift, triggered by rage." Logan's jaw tightened at the memory. The night his father had informed him that his future had been decided, a political alliance with the Stone family, sealed through marriage to Raymond's daughter. The night Logan had chosen the army over pack politics, freedom over duty. "What else did you see?" he asked, voice low and controlled. "Your brother James, following you into the forest afterward, the hunters who were waiting." Alara's voice softened with old pain. "I tried to warn him, but I couldn't reach them in time. By the time I found your father and the others, James was gone. They found only blood and signs of struggle." Logan closed his eyes briefly, old grief washing through him. "They told me it was a hunting accident, that he'd gone out alone and never returned." "Raymond Stone told you that," Alara corrected gently. "Your father was inconsolable. He spent months searching, used every resource, every connection. When he finally accepted James was gone, something broke in him." Thunder rumbled overhead, more distant now as the storm moved on. Logan paced the cave's perimeter, mind working through implications and connections. Why would hunters target James specifically? He wasn't the heir. He wasn't even a full alpha. "I don't think they were after James. I think they were after you." Alara opened the wooden box, revealing the moon shard again. Its inner light pulsed gently, responding to the growing moonlight as the storm clouds began to break. "Your brother was in the wrong place, wrong time." She carefully lifted the crystal from its velvet lining. "This is why they attacked tonight. The moon shard is essential for the complete shadow rite. Without it, the control is temporary, imperfect. With it, someone with the right bloodline could potentially control every werewolf within hundreds of miles." Logan approached, studying the crystal with narrowed eyes. "And my father had you researching this? Why?" "Because he believed James wasn't dead." Alara's words fell between them like stones. "He believed his younger son was taken for experimentation, that someone has spent 20 years perfecting the shadow rite, using him as a test subject. The recent attacks, the missing pack members, the controlled wolves, all escalating as the blood moon approaches. It fits a pattern described in the ancient texts, a preparation for something larger." She met his gaze directly. "Your father believed someone is building an army of controlled werewolves with a Blackwood at its center." "Blackwood?" Logan frowned at the unfamiliar name. "The original name of your bloodline, before it was changed to Ironheart during the Civil War era. The texts speak of Blackwood alphas having particularly strong command potential in the Shadow Rite." Alara's expression grew troubled. "If James has been under their control all this time, twisted by decades of experimentation, and they've developed a way to amplify his natural alpha abilities." The implications settled cold and heavy in Logan's gut. If Alara was right, if his brother had been transformed into some kind of werewolf puppet master, then tonight's attack wasn't just about stealing the moon shard. It was about preventing Logan's ascension during the blood moon, eliminating the only alpha strong enough to potentially counter their plans. "We need to return to the compound," Logan said decisively. "Warn the council. Prepare defenses." Alara shook her head. "That's exactly what they want, to draw you out into the open. The ceremony is their best opportunity to capture or kill you." "I can't hide while my pack is under attack." "It's not just about you anymore," she countered, frustration edging her voice. "The moon shard is the key to everything. If they get it and have a Blackwood alpha under their control, they can implement the complete shadow rite during the blood moon. Every werewolf within 1,000 miles could fall under their influence." Logan's military mind processed the tactical situation. If she was right, they were facing an organized enemy with superior numbers, advanced technology, and supernatural capabilities. Going in without preparation would be suicide. "We need allies," he said finally. "Information, resources." Alara nodded, relief evident in her expression. "There's a hunting cabin about 5 miles north, maintained by Samuel for emergencies. It has communication equipment, weapons, supplies." "Samuel?" Logan raised an eyebrow. "You seem to know a lot about pack secrets for someone supposedly on the periphery." A shadow crossed her face. Your father trusted me. After everyone else gave up searching for James, I continued, for years, documenting patterns, gathering scraps of information. Eventually, Richard noticed and made me his confidential archivist. She hesitated, then reached beneath her shirt collar to reveal a small silver key hanging alongside her library key. This opens your father's private records, everything he's collected about the Shadow Rite, about James, about the organization he believed was behind it all. Logan studied her with new eyes, reassessing everything he'd been told about the unassuming librarian. Who are you really, Alara Nightshade? You're no ordinary Omega. Something flickered in her gaze, a wariness born of long habit. I'm exactly what they said. An Omega who can't fully shift without pain, a bookkeeper, a librarian. No. Logan shook his head slowly. No ordinary Omega would have the confidence to meet an Alpha's gaze, would know pack secrets even council members don't, would be trusted by Richard Ironheart, who trusted almost no one. She looked away, firelight casting shadows across her face. We should rest while we can. The journey to the cabin will be challenging, especially if they're still hunting us. Logan recognized deflection when he heard it, but chose not to press. There would be time for questions later. For now, they needed to survive the night. They took turns keeping watch, though Logan suspected Alara slept little during her supposed rest. The storm passed completely by midnight, clouds parting to reveal a nearly full moon, one day shy of the blood moon that would rise the following night. They left the cave before dawn, following game trails north through dense forest. Logan moved with the silent efficiency of a career soldier, while Alara displayed a surprising woodcraft of her own. They spoke little, focusing on covering ground quickly while remaining alert for pursuit. By mid-morning, they reached a ridge overlooking Greyhaven Valley. Smoke still rose from the eastern wing of the Great Hall, but the fire appeared to have been contained. Pack members moved about the compound in patterns that suggested cleanup and recovery rather than ongoing crisis. They fought them off, Alara observed, relief evident in her voice. Logan nodded, scanning the valley with narrowed eyes. Or the attackers got what they came for and withdrew. They didn't get the moon shard. She patted the small backpack where they'd secured the wooden box. Maybe that wasn't their only objective. Logan focused on the patterns of movement below, decades of tactical assessment allowing him to read the situation. No security perimeter, no increased patrols. They're acting as if the threat has passed. Alara followed his gaze, frowning. That's not standard protocol after an attack. No, it's not. A cold suspicion formed in Logan's mind. Unless someone in authority assured them the danger was over. They continued north, more cautious now. By early afternoon, they reached the hunting cabin, a sturdy log structure nearly invisible among the ancient pines. It showed no signs of recent use, but was well maintained, with shuttered windows and a padlocked door that Alara opened with yet another key from her collection. Inside, the cabin was spare but well equipped. A radio sat on a desk in one corner, alongside topographical maps of the surrounding territory. Gun cabinets lined one wall, and a trapdoor in the floor revealed a cold cellar stocked with emergency supplies. Samuel comes up here once a month to check everything, Alara explained, powering up the radio. It was established as an emergency fallback position after a hunter attack in the 90s. Logan examined the weapons, a mix of conventional firearms and specialized equipment designed for werewolf combat. Silver bullets, tranquilizer darts calibrated for their metabolism, even a few ancient-looking weapons with silver-edged blades. Your father believed in being prepared, Alara said, noting his surprise at the arsenal. This goes beyond preparation. Logan hefted a state-of-the-art assault rifle. This is expecting war. Alara adjusted the radio frequencies, attempting to make contact with the compound. Static answered her first several attempts before a voice broke through. Samuel's, tense but controlled. Repeat, this is Greyhaven Security. Identify yourself. Samuel, it's Alara. I'm with Logan. We made it to the north cabin. A pause, then. Confirm identity. What did you bring me on my 75th birthday? "A first edition Hemingway and a bottle of 30-year Macallan," she answered without hesitation. The book was For Whom the Bell Tolls. Relief was evident in Samuel's voice when he responded. "Thank the moon. We thought you both might be dead. The fire, the attack, it was chaos." "What's the situation there?" Logan asked, taking the radio handset. "Controlled now. 4 dead, 12 injured. They hit us hard, but retreated when the storm intensified. Victoria and Raymond have organized cleanup and increased security for tonight's ceremony." Logan and Alara exchanged glances. "The ceremony is still happening?" Logan asked, keeping his voice neutral. "Of course. More important than ever now to show strength, establish clear leadership. Your father is—" Samuel hesitated. "He's taken a turn for the worse. The healers don't think he'll last through the night. Victoria's been coordinating everything in your absence." "We'll return immediately," Logan said, the soldier in him responding automatically to crisis. "No!" Alara whispered urgently, shaking her head. "It could be a trap." Logan covered the microphone. "We can't be sure of that. My father is dying. The pack needs leadership. Your father would want you to understand what you're walking into first." She reached for her backpack, pulling out a worn leather journal. "This is what he wanted you to see, his private record of everything he's learned about James's disappearance and the Shadow Rite." Samuel's voice crackled through the radio. "Logan, are you there?" "We'll call back," Logan said abruptly. "Need to check the perimeter first. Be on standby." He set down the handset and accepted the journal from Alara. The leather was soft with age and handling, the pages filled with his father's distinctive handwriting, cramped, precise notes interspersed with diagrams, maps, and what appeared to be transcripts of interviews. As Logan flipped through the pages, a photograph fell out, faded and creased from frequent handling. It showed James at 16, the last picture taken before his disappearance. His younger brother's face smiled up at him across the decades, bringing a sharp pang of grief and guilt. They'd been close once, before pack politics and their father's expectations had driven wedges between them. "The last entries are from 3 weeks ago," Alara said quietly, "just before his health deteriorated significantly. He was tracking a pattern of disappearances across 5 different packs, all with the same signature, missing for days, returned with memory gaps, and surgical scars." Logan found the referenced pages, studying the careful documentation. His father had been methodical, cross-referencing dates, locations, victims. A pattern emerged, each abduction occurring during specific moon phases, targeting werewolves with particular skills or bloodlines. "He believed a group called Chrysalis was behind it," Alara continued, "a scientific organization supposedly researching genetic therapies, but secretly focused on werewolf biology, government connections, private military contractors, unlimited funding." "And he thought they had James?" Logan asked, finding references to his brother scattered throughout the journal. Alara nodded. "About 7 years ago, he received an anonymous tip, a security camera image from a chrysalis facility in Colorado. The image quality was poor, but he believed one of the researchers was James, older, changed, but recognizable." Logan found the grainy photograph, carefully preserved between journal pages. The figure was blurred, captured in profile, but there was something in the stance, the way he held his shoulders, that tugged at Logan's memory. Could it really be his brother, alive after all these years? "Why didn't he tell me?" The question came out rougher than intended. Alara's expression softened with understanding. "He tried, sent messages through military channels, but by then you'd made it clear you wanted nothing to do with pack matters." The truth of her words stung. Logan had deliberately cut all ties, changing contact information whenever pack messages somehow found him. He'd been running from his heritage, from responsibility, from the pain of his brother's loss. As Logan continued through the journal, one entry made him pause, dated just 1 month ago, the handwriting shakier than earlier pages. Victoria visited again, asking about the moon shard. Her interest seems academic, but there's something in her questions that troubles me. The Stone family has always been ambitious. Raymond was furious when Logan rejected the arranged mating all those years ago. How far would he go for power? The timing of these attacks, so close to the Blood Moon succession. I've instructed Alara to secure the moon shard in the sealed vault. She alone knows the protection runes. Logan looked up sharply. You think Victoria and Raymond are working with Chrysalis? I don't know, Alara admitted. Your father had suspicions, but no proof. Raymond has been his closest advisor for decades. Victoria practically runs the Pack's day-to-day operations now. But they both knew about the moon shard, its importance to the Shadow Rite, as did the entire council. Knowledge of the artifact itself isn't secret, only its location and the specific rituals for its use. Alara's brow furrowed in thought. What troubles me is how quickly Victoria took command during the attack, how efficiently the hunters targeted the library wing specifically. Logan returned to the radio, his decision made. Samuel, you still there? The response came immediately. Here, Logan. What's your status? We're secure for now. Tell me about the attackers. What happened after we escaped? There was a brief pause before Samuel answered, his voice carefully measured. They withdrew once the fire took hold in the East Wing. Victoria led a counterattack that drove them back. We've doubled security, especially around your father. How soon can you return? The blood moon rises tonight, and without you, the succession ceremony cannot proceed. I'm concerned about security for the ceremony, Logan said, choosing his words with military precision. Has the council considered postponing until we can ensure there won't be another attack? Samuel's reply came too quickly. Impossible. The ritual must occur under the blood moon. The next one won't come for 17 years. Victoria and Raymond have assured us security will be airtight. Logan's instincts, honed through decades of combat situations, detected the subtle pressure in Samuel's tone. I see. And my father? Has he regained consciousness? Briefly. He asked for you. Samuel's voice softened with genuine emotion. Logan, he doesn't have much time. Whatever concerns you have about security, whatever happened at the library, it can wait. Your father deserves to see you before he passes. The appeal to filial duty was perfectly calculated to bypass Logan's tactical caution. He might have fallen for it if not for one critical detail. What exactly did my father say, Samuel? His exact words? The hesitation lasted only seconds, but to Logan's trained ear, it revealed volumes. He said to tell you he was sorry, that he should have protected James better. Logan kept his voice steady. I'll return by sundown. Have Victoria and Raymond meet me at the north gate. I don't want a public entrance. Too vulnerable. Understood. I'll inform them personally. As the radio connection ended, Logan turned to Alara, who had been listening intently. He's lying. She nodded grimly. Samuel would never leave your father's side if he were truly dying, and Richard would never apologize so simply. He's too proud. They're trying to lure us back. Logan began gathering weapons from the cabinet, selecting with practiced efficiency. The question is whether Samuel is being coerced or is part of whatever's happening. I've known Samuel all my life, Alara said. He was a friend to both my mother and grandmother. If he's compromised, it wasn't willingly. Logan checked ammunition, strapping on a tactical belt and shoulder holster. We'll assume he's under duress, which means we need a way into the compound that bypasses all known entrances. Alara hesitated, then squared her shoulders decisively. There is a way. The old tunnel system beneath the valley, access points hidden throughout the territory, including one about a mile from here. More secrets? Logan raised an eyebrow. I told you, knowledge is my business. She began gathering supplies of her own. These tunnels date back centuries. Most of the pack has forgotten them, but I've mapped them all. We can emerge directly beneath the Great Hall, assess the situation unseen. As they prepared to depart, Logan studied Alara with renewed curiosity. You're taking substantial risk for the pack. For me. Why? She paused in her preparations, considering her words carefully. I've served your family for 15 years. Your father treated me with respect when others saw only my defect. He trusted me with the pack's most precious knowledge. Her blue eyes met his steadily. But more than that, I believe in what the Greyhaven pack could be, a bridge between old ways and new, between tradition and adaptation. It wasn't the whole truth. Logan could sense that much. But it wasn't a lie either. Whatever her full motivations, Elara Nightshade had committed herself to their cause with clear-eyed determination. They left the cabin an hour later, traveling light and fast through the afternoon forest. The entrance to the tunnel system proved to be inside a lightning-struck oak tree, its hollow trunk concealing a narrow shaft that descended into darkness. Stone steps, worn smooth by centuries of use, spiraled downward into the earth. The tunnels themselves were surprisingly well constructed, tall enough for Logan to walk upright, with smooth stone walls marked by the same luminescent runes they'd seen in the Healer's Cave. Ancient magic that had preserved these passages across generations. The original pack settled here because of these tunnels, Elara explained as she led the way through the labyrinthine system. Natural caves expanded by Native American shapeshifters long before European werewolves arrived. Our ancestors formed alliances with them, learned their magic, eventually intermarried. Logan noted how the tunnels seemed to form concentric circles, with smaller passages branching outward like spokes from a wheel. A defensive design, he observed. Multiple escape routes, choke points, ambush locations. Exactly. During the early colonial period, werewolf hunting was common. These tunnels saved our kind many times. Elara navigated with confidence, never hesitating at intersections. The innermost circle runs directly beneath the Great Hall and connected buildings. As they moved deeper into the system, Logan noticed changes in the tunnel construction, newer stonework, modern support beams in some sections, even electric conduit running along certain passages. My father maintained these, he realized. All those hunting trips he'd take alone, he was checking the tunnels, upgrading them. He never stopped planning for pack defense, Elara confirmed. Even as he grew ill, he insisted on inspecting critical sections himself. They reached a junction where 5 tunnels converged in a circular chamber. A modern steel door had been installed in one passage, incongruous against the ancient stonework. Your father's private vault, Elara explained, removing her key, where he kept his most sensitive research and artifacts, too dangerous for even the restricted library. The lock opened with a sophisticated electronic mechanism, despite its old-fashioned appearance. Inside, the small chamber contained filing cabinets, weapons racks, and a communications setup that looked military-grade. A backup command center, Logan realized, examining the equipment, in case the main compound was compromised. He called it his contingency room. Elara moved to a filing cabinet, unlocking it with the same key. This contains everything he knew about Chrysalis and the Shadow Rite, information too dangerous to keep even in his journal. Logan joined her, examining documents that revealed the extent of his father's investigation. Surveillance photos, financial records tracing shell companies, personnel files on suspected Chrysalis operatives. Richard Ironheart had built a comprehensive intelligence operation focused on a single target. He was obsessed, Logan murmured, paging through a folder containing medical reports, experimental procedures, genetic sequencing of werewolf DNA, testing protocols that made his skin crawl. Not obsessed, determined, Elara pulled out a particular file, placing it before him. This arrived 3 weeks ago, the last piece of intelligence that convinced him Chrysalis was preparing for something tied to the blood moon. Inside was a single photograph, clinical, taken in what appeared to be a laboratory setting. It showed a man strapped to an examination table, medical equipment surrounding him. Though the subject's body was obscured by surgical draping, his face was clearly visible. James Blackwood. Older, gaunt, but unmistakably Logan's brother. He's alive, Logan whispered, emotions he'd long suppressed rushing to the surface. Grief, guilt, rage. All this time. The photo came with a message. Elara handed him a printed email. Anonymous, routed through multiple servers. The message was brief. Project Alpha enters final phase during Blood Moon. JB is the conduit. Stop the ceremony or lose everything. Logan's military mind rapidly processed implications, even as his heart reeled from confirmation of his brother's survival. The Blood Moon ceremony is their target. They're planning to use James somehow, implement the full Shadow Rite during the ritual. When pack bonds are most vulnerable to manipulation, Alara agreed. When your father's alpha power would normally transfer to you. They want to intercept that power, Logan concluded. Channel it through James instead, use the moon shard to amplify and corrupt it. He turned to the communications equipment, powering up a secure radio system separate from the one they'd used earlier. We need to warn the pack without alerting whoever's working with Chrysalis. If Victoria and Raymond are compromised, they'll control all standard communications. Alara examined a laminated card beside the radio. Your father established emergency protocols for exactly this scenario. A special frequency, specific code words only known to his most trusted inner circle. And who exactly was in this circle? Logan asked, adjusting the radio settings. Samuel, when he's not compromised. Martha Fletcher, the head healer. Jack Monroe, who warned us about the attack. And me. Alara recited a series of code phrases written on the card. These authenticate the emergency broadcast. Tell loyal pack members to go to secure locations. Logan transmitted the message as instructed, speaking clearly into the microphone. There was no immediate response, but they hadn't expected one. The protocol called for radio silence to prevent triangulation. Now we wait, Alara said, checking her watch. 1 hour. If Martha received the message, she'll meet us at Access Point 7, a tunnel entrance near the healing center. While they waited, Logan continued examining his father's files, piecing together the extent of the conspiracy. Chrysalis had been operating for decades. Its werewolf research program hidden behind legitimate medical research. High-level government connections protected them, while private military contractors provided security and specialized expertise. They've been experimenting on captive werewolves for years, he said grimly, reviewing case files. Testing limits, studying our biology, developing control methods. Starting with chemical restraints, then progressing to more sophisticated approaches, Alara added. Your father believed they made a breakthrough about 10 years ago, a method of partial implementation of the shadow rite that didn't require the moon shard. But limited in duration and scope, Logan noted, finding the relevant research. They needed a pure bloodline alpha and the complete ritual to achieve permanent, wide-ranging control. A photograph caught his attention, a distinguished-looking older man in a lab coat standing beside sophisticated medical equipment. Something about his features seemed vaguely familiar. Dr. Edmund Blackwood, Alara identified, seeing his interest. The scientific director of Chrysalis's werewolf program. Logan stared at the name, the implications sinking in. Blackwood? Related to my family? Your father's cousin. He disappeared from pack records about 40 years ago, supposedly killed during territory disputes with a rival pack. In reality, he faked his death, changed his identity, and built Chrysalis from the ground up. A werewolf experimenting on his own kind? The concept was abhorrent to Logan, violating the most fundamental pack principles. Edmund was brilliant but unstable. Your grandfather denied him a place in the succession despite his alpha bloodline, citing temperamental unsuitability. He never forgave the family. The pieces aligned with terrible clarity. A decades-long revenge plot, built on stolen werewolf blood and corrupted ancient rituals, using James, another disinherited Blackwood, as the conduit for stolen alpha power. We need to move, Logan said, checking his weapons one last time. The blood moon rises in 3 hours. Whatever they're planning culminates then. They sealed the vault and continued through the tunnels, following Alara's unerring navigation toward Access Point 7. Logan moved with the focused intensity of a soldier entering hostile territory, senses hyper-alert to any hint of danger. As they approached their destination, a familiar scent reached him, antiseptic mixed with herbs, the distinctive signature of Martha Fletcher's healing practice. When they rounded the final corner, the elderly healer stood waiting, her lined face grave in the tunnel's dim light. Logan Ironheart, she greeted formally. Your father would be proud to see you take up his mantle at last. Martha. Logan inclined his head respectfully. What's happening above? Chaos disguised as order, she replied cryptically. Victoria has taken full command, citing emergency protocols. Raymond spins tales of your cowardice, claiming you abandoned the pack during the attack. And my father? Logan asked, though he already suspected the answer. Sedated beyond consciousness. They claim it's to manage his pain, but the dosages— Martha's expression hardened. I've been removed as his primary healer. Victoria's brought in someone new, a specialist, she calls him. From Chrysalis, Elara guessed. Martha nodded grimly. I've never seen him before. Cold eyes, clinical manner. Has your father wired to monitoring equipment I don't recognize? And the ceremony preparations? Logan asked. Proceeding at Victoria's direction. She's modified the traditional ritual, claiming it's to accommodate security concerns, but the changes trouble me. Martha withdrew a folded paper from her pocket. I copied what I could of her instructions to the ceremonial council. Logan scanned the document, military training allowing him to quickly identify critical deviations. She's removed the traditional pack affirmation, added elements that focus power through the ceremony master instead of directly to the heir. She intends to intercept the alpha power, Elara concluded. Channel it somewhere else. To James, Logan said grimly, wherever they're keeping him. Martha's eyes widened. James? But he's dead. No. Logan handed her the laboratory photograph. He's been Chrysalis's prisoner for 20 years, their primary test subject, and now their weapon. The elderly healer studied the image, tears welling in her eyes. She had helped deliver both Ironheart sons, had tended their childhood illnesses and injuries. Sweet moon above, what have they done to him? We intend to find out, Logan said, voice hardening with resolve. And then we're going to end it. Martha squared her shoulders, healer's compassion giving way to the steel beneath. Jack Monroe and a few others remain loyal. They're suspicious of Victoria's sudden ascendancy. What do you need? Logan outlined a plan swiftly taking shape in his tactical mind. A coordinated approach utilizing the tunnel system, timed to disrupt the ceremony at its most critical moment. They would need diversions, secure communications, and precise intelligence on James's location. As they finalized details, a distant howl echoed through the tunnels, a mournful sound that all three recognized immediately. The death howl of a pack member acknowledging the passing of their alpha. Richard Ironheart was dead. Martha's face crumpled with grief and anger. They've killed him. The sedatives, the specialized care, they couldn't risk him regaining consciousness before the ceremony. Logan felt the news like a physical blow. Despite their strained relationship, despite 25 years of estrangement, Richard was his father. The last connection to his childhood, to the family they'd once been. In that moment of vulnerability, something unexpected happened. The medallion at Logan's throat, the symbol of the alpha heir, grew suddenly warm. Heat spread outward from the silver disc, flowing through his body like liquid fire. He gasped, dropping to one knee as power surged through him, ancient, primal energy seeking a new vessel. The alpha transfer, Martha whispered in awe. It's happening spontaneously. The bloodline recognizes its true heir, even without the ceremony. Elara knelt beside Logan, her hand finding his shoulder. At her touch, the burning sensation moderated, becoming bearable, still intense, but no longer overwhelming. The connection between them flared with sudden clarity, a bond neither had acknowledged, now impossible to ignore. Blood moon bond, Martha breathed, looking between them with wide eyes. It's actually real. I've never seen one manifest. Logan met Elara's gaze, understanding dawning between them. The inexplicable connection, the ability of her touch to moderate his emotions, the sense of recognition that had haunted him since their first meeting, all symptoms of the rarest bond in werewolf lore. A true mating of souls, transcending traditional pack hierarchies. This changes everything, Elara said softly. They won't be expecting the alpha power to have already transferred. Their entire plan depends on intercepting it during the ceremony. Logan rose to his feet, feeling new strength flowing through his veins, the full power of generations of alpha Blackwoods now his to command. With it came knowledge, instinctive understanding of abilities he'd spent decades suppressing. We attack tonight, he said, voice resonating with newfound authority. During the ceremony, when they're focused on a ritual that's already failed, we find James, free him if possible. "And if it's not possible?" Martha asked gently, the healer in her recognizing the terrible question that needed asking. Logan's jaw tightened, the weight of leadership settling fully on his shoulders. 25 years running from responsibility, from pack, from heritage, all ended in this moment of decision. "Then we do what's necessary to protect the pack," he said finally, "whatever that requires." As night fell across Greyhaven Valley, the blood moon began its rise, a crimson disk climbing above the eastern mountains. In the great hall above, Victoria Stone would be gathering the pack for a ceremony destined to fail. Below ground, the true alpha of Greyhaven prepared for battle against an enemy that had haunted his family for decades. At his side stood Alara Nightshade, the Omega who was far more than she appeared, bound to him by forces older than pack law. Together they would face the darkness coming for them all, carrying the hope of not just Greyhaven, but perhaps all werewolf kind. The tunnels echoed with their purposeful movements as loyal pack members gathered, ready to follow their true alpha into battle. The hunt was on. Crimson moonlight filtered through the ancient trees as Logan, Ilara, and their small band of loyalists moved through the tunnel system beneath Greyhaven Valley. The blood moon hung heavy in the night sky above them, its ominous light casting long shadows across the land. Even underground, werewolf senses could feel its pull, the primal energy that had governed their kind since time immemorial. Logan felt the alpha power coursing through his veins like liquid fire, a birthright he had spent decades denying, now fully awakened. Each heartbeat seemed to pulse with new awareness, new strength. His senses had sharpened beyond even werewolf norm, allowing him to track the movements of his companions with unprecedented clarity, to smell the subtle changes in their emotions, to hear the rhythm of their breath and blood. The medallion at his throat no longer felt like a burden, but an extension of himself, warm against his skin as if alive. Generations of Blackwood, now Ironheart, alphas had worn it, passing down not just a symbol, but something more profound. Logan now understood what his father had tried to explain so many times. The medallion was a conduit, connecting him to the collective wisdom and strength of his bloodline. Beside him walked Alara, her pale blonde hair almost luminescent in the dim light of the tunnels. Their newfound bond hummed between them, not intrusive but present, like the awareness of gravity. The blood moon bond, rarest of werewolf connections, transcended the traditional hierarchy. Through it, he sensed her keen intelligence, her unwavering determination, and beneath her composed exterior, a fierce protective instinct that belied her Omega status. "The ceremony will have begun by now," Martha whispered as they approached a junction in the tunnels. The elderly healer moved with surprising agility for her age, her knowledge of the underground pathways second only to Alara's. "Victoria will be deep into the ritual." Jack Monroe, a young beta with military training of his own, consulted the tactical map they had sketched. "We have 3 entry points to the Great Hall," he said. "The old servants' passage behind the ceremonial dais, the wine cellar access, and the main tunnel entrance in the western corridor." Logan nodded, military precision taking over as he formulated their approach. "We'll split into 3 teams. Jack, you'll lead Team Alpha through the wine cellar with 4 fighters. Create a diversion. Draw attention from the security forces Victoria has positioned." "Understood," Jack replied, his eyes reflecting determination and loyalty. "Martha, you'll take Team Beta through the western corridor with our 3 medics. Your priority is locating and securing my father's body. If they've done something to him as part of the ritual, we need to know." The healer nodded grimly, the mention of Richard Ironheart bringing fresh grief to her weathered features. "Ilara and I will take the servants' passage," Logan continued. "We'll emerge directly behind the ceremonial dais, where Victoria will be conducting the ritual. Our objective is to disrupt the ceremony and locate any sign of James or the Chrysalis operatives." He surveyed the small force they had assembled, 12 loyal pack members who had responded to the emergency protocol. Not many against Victoria's security force and whatever Chrysalis had positioned, but they had the element of surprise. "Remember," Logan said, his voice carrying the natural authority of an alpha. "Our primary goal is to protect the pack. Victoria and Raymond have deceived them, not converted them. Many gathered for the ceremony are innocent, simply following what they believe is tradition. Minimize casualties." As they performed final equipment checks, Logan drew Alara aside. The blood moon bond between them thrummed with tension, each sensing the other's unspoken concerns. "There's something you're not telling me," Logan said quietly. "Something about your connection to all this." Alara's blue eyes met his, conflict visible in their depths. "This isn't the time. If we're walking into battle together, I need to know everything." His tone remained gentle despite the firmness of his words. "No more secrets, Alara." She hesitated, then nodded, accepting the truth of his statement. "The ritual Victoria is performing. It requires a specific type of omega. Not just any omega, but one with a particular genetic marker, a bloodline trait even rarer than your alpha lineage." Understanding dawned in Logan's mind. "That's why you can't fully shift. It's not a defect." "No," she confirmed. "My grandmother called it the Moonkeeper bloodline. We appear as omegas, but our true purpose was lost to history, guardians of ritual knowledge, keepers of pack magic." "And the pain when you try to shift?" "The energy that should fuel transformation is channeled differently in Moonkeepers. We don't become wolves, we become conduits for ancient power." Her voice lowered. "Your father discovered this when researching the Shadow Rite. He realized what I truly was, what my grandmother had been before me." Logan processed this revelation, pieces falling into place. "That's why he trusted you with the pack's most guarded secrets, why you know the tunnels, the rituals, the protective magic." "Yes, and why Chrysalis wants me." Her hand unconsciously moved to the backpack where the moon shard was secured. "A Moonkeeper, the moon shard, and a pureblood alpha. Together, we're the three keys to the most powerful werewolf magic, for good or ill." The weight of this knowledge settled between them. Not just the danger they faced tonight, but the significance of their unexpected bond. The blood moon bond between an alpha of Logan's lineage and a Moonkeeper hadn't occurred in centuries, if ever. Their connection wasn't coincidence, but something that transcended rational explanation. "Does Victoria know what you are?" Logan asked. "I believe so. It would explain why they searched so specifically for me during the attack." Alara's expression hardened with resolve. "Which means tonight's ceremony isn't just about intercepting your alpha power. It's about capturing me to complete the ritual properly." Logan's protective instincts flared, the alpha in him responding to this threat with primal intensity. He mastered the surge with practiced discipline, channeling it into tactical focus instead. "Then we change the approach," he decided. "You stay with Martha's team. I'll take the servants' passage alone." "No." Alara's refusal was immediate and firm. "The blood moon bond gives us strength together that we lack separately. Whatever we face on that dais, we face it as one." Their eyes held for a long moment, alpha will meeting equally stubborn determination. Then Logan nodded, recognizing the truth in her words. "Together, then," he agreed. "But at the first sign that they're targeting you specifically, you withdraw. That's not negotiable." The hint of a smile touched her lips. "We'll see." Minutes later, they were moving through the narrowest of the tunnels, the servants' passage that had once allowed staff to access the ceremonial dais unseen during formal pack gatherings. The passage was tight, even for Alara. Logan had to move sideways in some sections, his broad shoulders nearly brushing both walls. Above them, they could hear the rhythmic chanting that accompanied the blood moon ritual, dozens of voices raised in the ancient language of their kind. The sound vibrated through the stone, carrying power that even non-werewolves might have sensed as a pressure in the air. As they neared the hidden entrance behind the dais, Logan signaled for silence. His enhanced hearing focused on the ceremony above, distinguishing individual voices among the chanting masses. Victoria Stone stood at the center of ritual, her voice carrying the practiced cadence of someone who had studied the ancient words meticulously. Raymond's deeper tones provided counterpoint, the traditional role of the elder advisor. But there was a third voice, unfamiliar, clinical in its precision, reciting sections that Logan didn't recognize from the traditional ceremony. "The chrysalis representative," Alara whispered, her breath warm against Logan's ear. "They've modified the ritual significantly." Logan nodded, continuing to listen, as Victoria led the pack through the modified ceremony. The traditional elements acknowledging the passing of the previous alpha remained, but the sections concerning the transfer of power had been altered. Instead of focusing on the heir receiving the mantle directly, the new words spoke of channeling, purification, and rebirth through worthy vessels. Alara's expression darkened as she caught the implications. They're preparing the pack to accept a new alpha chosen by ritual rather than bloodline, creating theological justification for James to receive the power instead of you. "Clever," Logan acknowledged grimly. "The pack respects tradition above all. If they believe the ritual itself has chosen a new path, they'll accept it." They reached the concealed door that would allow them access to the space behind the ceremonial dais. Logan checked his watch. The teams would be in position now, awaiting his signal to move. "Ready?" he asked. Alara nodded, her hand finding his briefly. The contact sent a surge of energy through their bond, steadying them both. Logan keyed his radio, giving the prearranged signal. 3 clicks, silence, 2 clicks. Confirmation came back immediately from both teams. The assault would begin on his mark. Through the thin wooden panel, they could see the ceremony through narrow gaps in the ornate carving. Victoria stood on the raised dais, dressed in formal ceremonial robes of deep burgundy, her dark hair elaborately arranged with silver ornaments that caught the light from dozens of ritual candles. Raymond flanked her on one side, equally formal in midnight blue. The third figure, the one whose voice Logan hadn't recognized, stood opposite Raymond. Tall, lean, with the bearing of a scientist rather than a warrior, he wore a modern suit incongruous among the traditional garb of the ceremony. His silver hair was cropped close to his skull, his features sharp and calculating as he surveyed the gathered pack. "Dr. Edmund Blackwood," Alara breathed. "He's here personally." The great hall was filled to capacity, pack members arranged in concentric circles around the dais according to rank and status. The air vibrated with power, partly from the ritual, partly from the blood moon energy flooding through the stained glass windows that lined the upper walls. At the center of the dais stood an ornate silver bowl atop a stone pedestal, carved with runes that glowed faintly blue in the crimson moonlight. Beside it rested a ceremonial dagger and what appeared to be medical equipment: syringes, vials, monitoring devices that had no place in traditional ritual. "The final phase approaches," Victoria announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "For too long, our pack has diminished, in numbers, in strength, in purpose. Tonight, under the blood moon, we forge a new path. The Ironheart line has served us well, but blood alone is not destiny." Murmurs rippled through the assembled pack. Uncertainty, confusion, but not yet outright rejection. Victoria had prepared them well, Logan realized. Weeks or months of subtle suggestions, small changes to tradition, preparing them to accept this final dramatic shift. "The heir abandoned us," Raymond added, his voice heavy with practiced regret. "Fled during attack, leaving others to defend our home, our heritage. The blood moon demands worthiness, not merely birthright." Logan felt a surge of anger at the blatant manipulation, but kept it tightly controlled. Now was not the time for emotional response. Victoria raised the ceremonial dagger, its silver blade catching the moonlight. The ritual calls for blood freely given by an alpha of the line. Richard Ironheart, in his final hours, provided this sacrifice. She lifted a crystal vial containing a thick crimson liquid. Logan's enhanced senses detected his father's scent even at this distance. Blood taken, perhaps not as freely as Victoria claimed. "Now we call forth the true heir, one who has suffered for the pack, sacrificed for our future, proven worthy through trial and pain." At some unseen signal, a side door opened. 2 guards entered, half supporting, half dragging a figure between them. Even before the man raised his head, Logan knew. The scent of shared blood, of family, reached him through the wood panel, stirring memories decades buried. James. His younger brother was almost unrecognizable from the teenager Logan had last seen. His once robust frame had been whittled to lean hardness, muscles corded beneath pale skin marked with surgical scars. His dark hair, so like Logan's own, was streaked with premature silver. But it was his eyes that had changed most profoundly, still blackwood amber, but vacant, unfocused, pupils dilated unnaturally. "They've drugged him," Alara whispered, horror evident in her tone. Heavily, he's conscious, but not present. Logan's hands clenched into fists, claws extending involuntarily as rage surged through him. 20 years of his brother's life stolen, transformed into this puppet for others' ambitions. "Control," Alara murmured, her hand finding his shoulder. "We need perfect timing." With immense effort, Logan mastered his fury, forcing his tactical mind to reassert control. He gave the second signal, 2 long clicks on the radio, 10 seconds to synchronized attack. Victoria raised the vial of Richard's blood high. "With blood of the Father, we anoint the worthy Son. With power of the moon, we forge new bonds. With will of the pack, we embrace our future." As she approached James with the vial, Logan burst through the concealed door, emerging onto the dais like an avenging spirit. Simultaneously, explosions rocked the western corridor and wine cellar, the diversionary attacks right on schedule. "The ceremony is a lie," Logan announced, his voice carrying the full power of his alpha status. The medallion at his throat blazed with silver light, responding to his awakened heritage. "Victoria Stone and Raymond Stone conspire with our enemies to enslave the Pack." Chaos erupted throughout the Great Hall. Pack members rose in confusion, security forces moved to intercept the threats from multiple directions, and Victoria spun to face Logan, shock quickly replaced by calculating fury on her face. "The coward returns," she snarled, recovering quickly. "Too late. The ritual has begun." Dr. Edmund Blackwood showed no surprise at all, regarding Logan with clinical interest. "The prodigal alpha," he observed in the same dispassionate tone one might use to note an interesting specimen. "How convenient that you've joined us. We can complete the transfer directly." Logan advanced across the dais, aware of Alara moving silently behind him, circling toward James while attention remained fixed on the confronting alphas. "There is no transfer to complete," Logan stated, allowing his eyes to shift to their alpha gold, letting the gathered pack see the truth. "The power passed to me when my father died. I am Alpha of Greyhaven now." Victoria's expression faltered momentarily as she registered the obvious signs of Alpha ascension. The eyes, the commanding presence, the subtle glow of the medallion. This wasn't in her script. "Impossible," Raymond snapped. "Without the ritual, the power remains dormant." "True succession transcends ritual," Logan countered, addressing the confused pack rather than their manipulators. "The blood knows its own. Feel it, all of you. Recognize your true alpha." Many in the gathered crowd responded instinctively, their wolf natures acknowledging the dominant presence before them, despite years of conditioning. Uncertainty rippled through the great hall, the balance of loyalty tipping. Edmund Blackwood remained unperturbed, reaching into his jacket to withdraw a small device resembling a remote control. "Fascinating adaptation," he noted, "but ultimately irrelevant to our purposes." He pressed a button on the device. James's body convulsed suddenly, back arching in obvious pain. A scream tore from his throat, the first sound he had made since entering. "Stop," Logan demanded, taking another step forward. "Proximity control," Blackwood explained, as if conducting a lecture. "Neural implants responding to specific frequencies. Your brother has been our most successful subject, resilient despite decades of experimentation. The perfect conduit." Victoria moved to the silver bowl, pouring Richard's blood into it. "The ritual continues," she insisted, "with or without pack approval." As security forces engaged with Jack's team entering from the west, Logan made his move, launching across the dais with supernatural speed. Victoria barely had time to raise the ceremonial dagger in defense before he was upon her, one hand closing around her wrist with enough force to make the bones creak. "You betrayed everything a pack stands for," he growled, forcing the dagger from her grip. "I saved us," she hissed back. "Your father was weak, clinging to outdated traditions while our numbers dwindled. Chrysalis offers evolution, advancement. Why merely survive when we could rule?" Raymond attempted to intervene, but Logan dispatched him with a backhanded blow that sent the older man sprawling across the dais. The pack's shocked gasps at this display of alpha dominance were drowned by renewed screams from James as Blackwood increased the neural stimulation. "Enough theatrics," the scientist said coldly. "The blood moon reaches its apex in minutes. Secure the alpha and bring me the omega female. The ritual must be completed." Victoria's eyes darted to where Alara had nearly reached James. "The librarian!" she spat. "I should have recognized what she was sooner." Logan maintained his grip on Victoria while assessing the rapidly deteriorating situation. Jack's team was holding their own against the security forces, and Martha's group had secured the western approach, but Blackwood had produced a sidearm from his jacket, pointing it not at Logan, but at the suffering James. "A choice, Alpha Ironheart," Blackwood stated calmly. "Surrender yourself and the Moonkeeper for the ritual, or watch your brother die. After 20 years preserving him, I'd prefer not to waste the investment, but science requires flexibility." Logan locked eyes with Alara across the dais, their blood moon bond conveying what words could not. She gave an imperceptible nod, her hand slipping into her pocket where the moonshard rested. "You misunderstand the situation, Doctor," Logan replied, voice steady despite the rage coursing through him. "I'm not here to negotiate." With that, he hurled Victoria bodily across the dais, sending her crashing into Blackwood. The scientist's shot went wide, and in the moment of confusion, Logan moved to James, breaking the restraints that held his brother with one powerful wrench. Simultaneously, Alara withdrew the moonshard from her pocket, the crystal catching the blood moon's light and amplifying it blindingly. The ancient artifact had remained dormant in its box, but now, in the hands of a moonkeeper under the blood moon, it awakened, pulsing with power that sent visible waves of energy across the great hall. "No!" Blackwood scrambled to his feet, genuine alarm breaking through his clinical detachment. "The moonshard requires the full ritual. Uncontrolled activation could—" Whatever warning he intended was lost as the crystal's light intensified, focusing on the silver bowl containing Richard Ironheart's blood. The crimson liquid began to glow, then rise from the container, suspended in midair as if gravity had relinquished its hold. Alara's voice, when she spoke, carried an authority that rivaled Logan's alpha command, the voice of a moonkeeper fully embodying her ancient role. "Blood remembers," she intoned, words that seemed to come from somewhere beyond her. "Blood recognizes its own. What was taken shall be restored. What was broken shall be mended." KOC. The floating blood separated into two distinct streams, one moving toward Logan, the other toward James. Logan felt the blood moon bond pulse between himself and Alara, their connected energies somehow guiding this impossible phenomenon. When the blood touched his forehead, Logan gasped as memories not his own flooded his consciousness. His father's final thoughts, his desperate attempt to warn the pack, his love for both his sons despite the mistakes and misunderstandings that had driven them apart. In that moment, Logan understood Richard Ironheart more completely than he ever had in life. The second stream reached James, whose tortured eyes suddenly cleared as the blood touched him. Recognition flickered in his gaze as he looked at Logan, truly seeing his brother for the first time in decades. "The neural implants!" Blackwood shouted, frantically manipulating his control device. "They're malfunctioning! The Moonkeeper is interfering with the frequency!" Victoria, recovering from being thrown, launched herself at Alara with a feral snarl. Before she could reach her target, James intercepted, moving with unexpected speed despite his weakened state, catching Victoria mid-lunge and throwing her back. "Enough," James rasped, his voice rough from screams and disuse. "No more puppets." The moonshard's light continued to intensify, energy cascading from it in visible waves that spread throughout the great hall. Where this energy touched pack members, confusion cleared from their expressions, replaced by understanding and then outrage as the full scope of the conspiracy became apparent to them. Raymond Stone attempted to flee toward a side exit, but found his path blocked by pack members, their eyes now hard with the knowledge of his betrayal. Jack Monroe's team had subdued the security forces, many of whom had stopped fighting as the Moonshard's energy cleared their minds of external influence. Edmund Blackwood remained calm despite his collapsing plans, his scientific curiosity apparently overriding self-preservation. "Extraordinary," he murmured, watching the Moonshard's effect with academic interest. The legends were accurate after all. A true moonkeeper with an alpha counterpart can indeed channel pack consciousness. Logan moved to stand beside Alara, supporting her as the effort of controlling the moonshard clearly taxed her strength. The crystal's light had begun to synchronize with her heartbeat, visible pulses matching the rhythm Logan could hear through their bond. "It's too much power," she whispered to him, strain evident in her voice. "I can't contain it much longer." Understanding instinctively what needed to be done, Logan placed his hand over hers, their fingers intertwining around the crystal. The blood moon bond between them flared, the connection deepening as alpha strength bolstered Moonkeeper magic. Together they directed the Moonshard's energy upward, through the stained glass ceiling panels that depicted the phases of the moon. The crystal's light shot skyward in a blinding column that illuminated the entire valley, merging with the blood moon's crimson glow to create a beacon visible for miles. Throughout Greyhaven territory, werewolves felt the pulse of ancient power, a cleansing wave that swept away Chrysalis's influence, breaking neural controls, restoring clarity of mind and purpose. The pack bond, manipulated and weakened by years of subtle corruption, reasserted itself with renewed strength. In the Great Hall, the pack moved as one entity to secure the conspirators. Victoria fought viciously until Logan's alpha command, "Submit," forced her to her knees, her wolf nature unable to resist the true alpha's will. Raymond surrendered without resistance, his calculated ambition crumbling in the face of absolute failure. Only Blackwood maintained his clinical detachment, observing the proceedings with the air of a scientist documenting unexpected experimental results. As the Moonshard's energy began to subside, Alara swayed on her feet. Logan caught her before she could fall, gathering her against his chest while maintaining their joint hold on the crystal. "The cycle completes," she murmured, her blue eyes meeting his with exhausted clarity. "Alpha and Moonkeeper, as it was meant to be." James approached them slowly, his movements still pained, but his eyes now fully present and aware. "Brother," he said simply, the single word carrying decades of suffering, recognition, and tentative hope. Logan extended his free arm, drawing James into an embrace that bridged 20 years of separation. The three of them stood together on the dais. Alpha, Moonkeeper, and the lost brother returned, as the pack gathered around them, the natural order restoring itself in the wake of revelation. Martha Fletcher appeared at the edge of the dais, her medical team having secured Richard Ironheart's body. "He's at peace," she announced quietly to Logan. Whatever they did to him at the end, his spirit was already gone. The Alpha Power had already chosen its new vessel. Logan nodded, grief and responsibility settling on his shoulders. Not as a burden now, but as the mantle he had been born to bear. 25 years running from his heritage had ended here, beneath the blood moon, with truth finally revealed and family partially restored. "What happens now?" James asked, his voice gaining strength, though still rough from years of disuse. Before Logan could answer, the moonshard pulsed once more in their hands. Alara gasped as the crystal's light briefly intensified, illuminating the three of them in silver radiance. "It's showing us something," she whispered. "A memory, not ours, Images flooded their shared consciousness, ancient werewolves performing rituals beneath stone circles, moonkeepers channeling pack magic while alphas directed its purpose, the original balance of power that had been lost to time and deliberate suppression. They saw the Blackwood ancestors, the splitting of bloodlines, the corrupted knowledge that had led to the Shadow Rite, and finally, a glimpse of what could be, werewolf kind reunited with its true heritage, neither hiding from the modern world nor consumed by it. As the vision faded, Elara carefully wrapped the moonshard in a cloth from her pocket, its light dimming to a gentle glow. "The crystal has shown us our path forward," she said, her voice steadier now despite her obvious exhaustion. "Not just for Greyhaven, but for all packs." Logan addressed the assembled werewolves, his voice carrying the natural authority of an alpha who had finally accepted his role. "Victoria and Raymond will face pack justice for their betrayal. Dr. Blackwood and any Chrysalis operatives will be detained while we determine the full extent of their operation." His gaze swept across the gathered faces, confused, shaken, but looking to him for direction. "We have been manipulated for decades, our traditions corrupted, our purpose distorted. Tonight marks the beginning of restoration, not just of leadership, but of knowledge long suppressed." Elara stepped forward, her hand still clasped in Logan's. "The Moonkeepers were once the keepers of pack history, the guardians of our most sacred knowledge. That role was deliberately obscured, Omegas relegated to submissive positions to prevent the balance of power that once made our kind strong." Murmurs spread through the crowd as this revelation settled, challenging centuries of established hierarchy, suggesting a fundamental misunderstanding of their own nature. "Change won't come overnight," Logan acknowledged, sensing their uncertainty. "But it begins now, with truth, with healing what was broken." James straightened beside them, finding his voice despite years of forced silence. "Beginning with Chrysalis. They have other facilities, other test subjects. Our kind, imprisoned, experimented upon. They must be freed." The blood moon's light began to fade as the lunar eclipse passed its apex, the crimson glow giving way to the moon's natural silver radiance. The most powerful moment for ritual had passed, but its effects would resonate long after this night. Logan felt the weight of leadership, not just of Greyhaven, but potentially of a movement that could transform werewolf society. The military commander in him recognized the challenges ahead: dismantling Chrysalis, reforming pack structure, protecting their kind while finding a sustainable place in the modern world. Yet for the first time in decades, he faced these challenges not with resignation, but with purpose. The blood moon bond hummed between him and Elara, a connection that transcended traditional roles and offered balance he hadn't known was missing. As dawn approached, the Great Hall gradually emptied as pack members returned to their homes to process the night's revelations. Martha took James to the healing center, beginning the long process of removing Blackwood's neural implants and assessing the damage from 20 years of captivity. Logan and Elara remained on the dais, the moonshard safely secured once more in its wooden box. The silence between them was comfortable, their bond allowing communication beyond words. "You knew, didn't you?" Logan finally asked. "About the blood moon bond, about what would happen when we came together." Elara's lips curved in a tired smile. "Not new, suspected. My grandmother left journals describing the ancient partnerships between alphas and moonkeepers, the rituals they performed, the balance they maintained. But such bonds were legend, not lived experience. Until now." Logan studied her face in the fading moonlight, seeing beyond the facade of the unassuming librarian to the strength beneath. "When did you first suspect what you were?" "My grandmother told me stories from childhood, called me Little Moon when no one was listening." Her expression softened with memory. "When I couldn't shift properly, when the pain came, she explained that my energy followed different paths. But it wasn't until your father found the ancient texts describing moonkeepers that I truly understood." She looked down at her hands, which had wielded such extraordinary power minutes before. The ability to connect with objects, to read memories from them, to sense truth beyond words. All Moonkeeper traits, misunderstood as peculiarities or defects. And the bond between us? Did you feel it from the beginning? The first time I saw you, yes. Her admission came softly. That night in the forest, when you transformed in rage at your father's plans. Even at a distance, I felt the connection trying to form. It frightened me then. I was only 17, and you were leaving. Logan's hand found hers again, the contact sending warmth through their bond. And now? Does it still frighten you? No. Her blue eyes met his, clear and certain. Now it feels like coming home, like finding a piece of myself I didn't know was missing. Outside, birds began their dawn chorus as the first pale light of morning touched the eastern mountains. A new day for Greyhaven, for Logan, for the brother he had thought lost forever, and for the woman who had shown him the truth of his heritage. The challenges ahead remained immense: chrysalis to dismantle, pack structures to reform, ancient knowledge to rediscover. But as the blood moon set and a new day dawned, one truth stood clear amid the uncertainty. Alpha and Moonkeeper, bound by forces older than memory, would face whatever came together. The throne of the pack awaited its rightful Alpha, and for the first time in his life, Logan Ironheart was ready to claim it. Dawn broke over Greyhaven Valley, golden light chasing away the last shadows of the momentous night. The blood moon had set, but its effects lingered in the renewed pack bonds, strengthened connections, and the subtle shift in power dynamics that every werewolf could sense. Logan Ironheart stood at the window of his father's study, his study now, watching as pack members moved purposefully through the compound. Cleanup crews repaired damage from the previous night's confrontation. Security teams maintained vigilant patrols, alert for any chrysalis reinforcements that might attempt to rescue their captured leadership. Medical teams tended to the injured, while forensic groups carefully documented evidence from Edmund Blackwood's temporary laboratory. 3 days had passed since the blood moon ceremony, days filled with interrogations, healing, planning, and the gradual restoration of order. Victoria and Raymond Stone remained in secured quarters beneath the Great Hall, their fate to be decided by pack justice. Edmund Blackwood was held separately, under heavier guard, his clinical detachment finally cracking as the full implications of his failure became apparent. "The council is assembled," Jack Monroe announced from the doorway, his bearing that of a soldier reporting to his commander. The young Beta had proven invaluable during the crisis, his military background complementing Logan's own tactical approach. "They await you in the chamber." Logan nodded, straightening his shoulders. He had exchanged his tactical gear for more formal attire, charcoal slacks and a navy button-down that acknowledged tradition while remaining practical. The Alpha medallion rested against his chest, no longer a burden, but an extension of his identity. "And my brother?" Logan asked. "Stable," Jack replied. "Martha says the procedure to remove the first neural implant was successful. He's resting now, with Alara watching over him." The mention of Alara brought a flicker of warmth through the blood moon bond that connected them. Even at a distance, Logan could sense her, focused, determined, her energy directed toward helping James recover. The bond had strengthened over the past days, allowing an awareness of each other's general emotional states and locations within the territory. "The council won't be pleased about postponing judgment on the stones," Jack noted as they walked toward the council chamber. "Some are calling for immediate execution, especially the older members." "Justice requires clarity, not haste," Logan replied. His voice carried the natural authority of an alpha who had accepted his role, calm but unyielding. "We'll hear the evidence fully before rendering judgment." The council chamber looked markedly different from the night Logan had returned to Greyhaven. The traditional circle of 12 chairs had been expanded to 18, with new additions representing previously excluded segments of the pack. Most notably, 3 Omegas now sat among the Alphas and Betas, their presence a visible sign of the changing order. Conversations hushed as Logan entered, all eyes turning to the Alpha who had reclaimed his birthright in such dramatic fashion. He took his place at the head of the table, acknowledging the council with a respectful nod. 3 days ago, our pack faced its greatest threat in generations, Logan began without preamble. A conspiracy spanning decades nearly succeeded in subjugating not just Greyhaven, but potentially all werewolves within our sphere of influence. The immediate danger has passed, but we must now address both justice for those responsible and protection against future threats. Samuel Jackson, looking more worn than when Logan had first returned, but still carrying himself with dignity, spoke first. Alpha Ironheart, the Council extends its formal apology for our failure to recognize the corruption within our ranks. Victoria Stone's influence ran deeper than any suspected. No apology is needed, Logan assured the elderly Beta. Victoria and Raymond operated with clinical precision over many years. Their manipulation was subtle, building on genuine pack concerns while slowly twisting traditions to serve their purposes. What of Chrysalis? Asked Clara Bennett, one of the newly appointed Omega Council members. Dr. Blackwood has revealed little despite interrogation. Logan activated this modern display screen that had been installed along one wall of the ancient chamber, another sign of the blend of tradition and adaptation that characterized his approach. A map appeared, showing locations marked with red indicators across North America and Europe. Based on information extracted from Blackwood's devices and corroborated by our own intelligence, we've identified 14 Chrysalis facilities, Logan explained. 6 are primary research centers where werewolves are likely being held. The others are administrative or support operations. We can't possibly assault 14 heavily secured facilities, objected Robert Fletcher, an alpha who had initially been skeptical of Logan's leadership. Even with our full strength, we're talking about a paramilitary organization with government connections. We won't be acting alone, Logan replied. He tapped the screen, highlighting 5 additional locations marked in green. These represent the territories of other packs I've contacted. All have confirmed missing members over the past decade. All have suffered infiltration attempts similar to what we experienced. Together we form a coalition with sufficient strength to coordinate simultaneous operations. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the council. Werewolf packs traditionally maintained strict territorial boundaries, cooperation between them rare and limited. The notion of a coordinated multi-pack operation was unprecedented in modern times. "You've done this in 3 days?" Samuel asked, impressed despite his concerns. "The groundwork was already laid," Logan acknowledged. "My father had established tentative connections with several pack leaders who shared his suspicions about Chrysalis. Alara helped me access his secure communications and reactivate those channels." Logan advanced to the next screen, showing a detailed tactical overview. "We've designated this Operation Moonlight. Phase 1 involves simultaneous reconnaissance of all Chrysalis facilities, confirming captive locations and security protocols. Phase 2 will be coordinated extraction operations, prioritizing the rescue of captive werewolves. Phase 3 addresses the dismantling of Chrysalis's infrastructure and neutralizing their research. The Council studied the plans with growing appreciation for their thoroughness. Logan's military experience was evident in every aspect: contingencies, resource allocation, communication protocols, extraction strategies. "This is impressive," Robert admitted reluctantly, "but it requires resources beyond what Greyhaven can provide." "Which brings us to our immediate needs," Logan agreed. "Jack Monroe will lead our tactical teams, drawing from our most experienced fighters. Samuel will coordinate with other packs, serving as diplomatic liaison. Martha Fletcher will prepare medical support for recovered captives. As for intelligence and historical context," he paused, "that brings me to an announcement regarding pack structure." The council members straightened, sensing the significance of what was to come. "For generations, our understanding of werewolf hierarchy has been incomplete," Logan stated. "The traditional Alpha-Beta-Omega structure omitted a crucial role, that of the Moonkeeper. These rare individuals, previously misidentified as defective Omegas, are in fact guardians of pack knowledge and channels for our most ancient magics." He met the eyes of each council member in turn. Alara Nightshade is a Moonkeeper, possibly the last of her kind. Her abilities were instrumental in our victory during the blood moon, and her knowledge will be essential to reclaiming our heritage. Therefore, effective immediately, I am establishing the position of Lead Moonkeeper, equal in authority to that of Alpha. Elara will hold this position, working alongside me to lead Greyhaven into a new era. The announcement landed like a thunderclap in the chamber. Even the most progressive council members looked stunned at this fundamental restructuring of power. Werewolf Society had been strictly hierarchical for as long as any could remember, with the Alpha's authority absolute and unquestioned. "This is unprecedented," Samuel said carefully. "So is our situation," Logan countered. "The blood moon bond between Elara and myself isn't merely personal. It represents the restoration of an ancient balance, Alpha strength guided by Moonkeeper wisdom. The moon shard revealed this truth to us, showing visions of our ancestors and the original structure of pack leadership." "Visions from a magical crystal," Robert said skeptically. "That's hardly a basis for overturning thousands of years of tradition." Logan met the challenge calmly. "The same traditions that were manipulated by Victoria and Raymond? The same traditions that allowed Chrysalis to infiltrate us? Perhaps it's time to question which traditions serve us and which merely preserve power structures that no longer function as intended." Clara Bennett spoke up, her voice quiet but firm. "As an Omega who has lived under those traditions, I support Alpha Ironheart's proposal. I've known Elara for years, watched her accumulate knowledge while being dismissed because of her supposed defect. If she is indeed a Moonkeeper, as the ancient texts describe, her perspective is precisely what we need." One by one, council members voiced their opinions, some supportive, others cautious, a few openly resistant. Logan listened to each, acknowledging their concerns without yielding on his central decision. His leadership style was becoming apparent, respectful of input but decisive when necessary, collaborative yet ultimately guided by a clear vision. "We will proceed with Operation Moonlight as outlined," he concluded after all had spoken. "Elara will brief the council on Moonkeeper traditions and abilities once her current duties with James are completed. In the meantime, I ask each of you to prepare your respective areas for what's coming. Chrysalis won't accept defeat easily." As the council adjourned, Logan felt a subtle shift through the blood moon bond, a change in Elara's emotional state from focused calm to sudden concern. Something had happened with James. Without explanation to the departing council members, Logan strode from the chamber, following the bond's pull toward the medical wing. The healing center occupied the southwestern corner of the compound, a blend of modern medical facility and traditional werewolf healing practices. Logan found Elara outside the treatment room, where James had undergone the first procedure to remove his neural implants. Her face was pale with exhaustion, blonde hair pulled back in a simple braid, but her blue eyes were sharp with urgency. "He's awake," she said without preamble, "and remembering." Logan understood immediately. As the Chrysalis control mechanisms were removed, James was regaining not just autonomy, but memories of his 20 years in captivity, memories that might hold crucial information and tremendous trauma. "How much?" Logan asked, already moving toward the door. "Everything about the Colorado facility. Names, locations, security protocols." Elara fell into step beside him. "But Logan, it's overwhelming him. The neural implant removal has stripped away whatever barriers were compartmentalizing those memories." Inside the treatment room, James sat on the edge of the medical bed, shoulders hunched, hands gripping the metal frame so tightly his knuckles had turned white. Martha Fletcher stood nearby, monitoring equipment displaying his elevated vital signs. Despite 3 days of proper nutrition and care, James still looked haunted, skin too pale, eyes too hollow, body too thin. But the vacancy in his gaze had been replaced by something perhaps more painful: awareness. "Logan," he acknowledged, voice stronger than it had been during the ceremony, but still rough from years of limited use. "Good timing. I was just telling Martha and Elara about Facility 7. Logan pulled a chair opposite his brother, maintaining enough distance to avoid crowding him while close enough to establish connection. "Take your time, James. Whatever you can remember might help, but your recovery comes first." A ghost of a smile touched James's lips. Still the protective older brother. Some things never change. His gaze shifted to the window, focusing on the mountains beyond, as if the distance helped him organize his thoughts. Facility 7, the Colorado location, is their primary research center. 3 underground levels, security that would impress your military friends. They're holding 17 werewolves there currently, including 3 children. Logan's jaw tightened at this confirmation of their worst fears. Children? James nodded grimly. Born in captivity, Chrysalis discovered that werewolf traits can manifest as early as age 5 under certain conditions. They've been accelerating the process. Alara moved to a small table, retrieving a digital recorder and notebook. May I document this? Every detail could help with the rescue operation. At James's nod, she began recording, her Moonkeeper training evident in her methodical approach to preserving knowledge. Logan recognized the technique. She was helping James organize chaotic memories into coherent information, giving structure to trauma without minimizing it. For the next hour, James detailed what he knew of Chrysalis operations, security systems, research protocols, personnel structures, and most importantly, the condition of the captives. As a long-term subject who had eventually gained limited trust from his captors, James had observed more than they realized. His perfect recall, a Blackwood family trait, had preserved these details despite the neural controls. Edmund Blackwood visited monthly, James explained, always with new experimental protocols, always pushing boundaries. The man has no moral limitations whatsoever, views us as fascinating specimens rather than sentient beings. What was their ultimate goal? Logan asked. Beyond the shadow rite? James's expression darkened. Human enhancement. They believe werewolf abilities can be isolated, synthesized, and transferred to human subjects. Imagine special forces with our strength and healing, intelligence operatives with our senses, political assets with an alpha's persuasive abilities. Chrysalis sells the promise of superiority to whoever funds them, military, intelligence agencies, private interests. And have they succeeded? Martha asked, the healer in her professionally detached but personally horrified. Partially. They've created serums that temporarily grant limited abilities, but the side effects are severe. James swallowed hard, memories clearly disturbing him. The shadow rite was meant to solve their control problem. Enhanced humans are unpredictable, difficult to manage. But werewolves under ritual control could be the perfect weapons, powerful, yet completely obedient. Logan processed this information with the tactical assessment of a career soldier. If James was right, they weren't just facing a scientific organization with security forces. They were potentially confronting government interests with significant resources. We need to accelerate our timeline, he decided. If Chrysalis believes their shadow rite has failed permanently, they might move to eliminate evidence, including captives. Alara nodded, already thinking along the same lines. We should begin with Facility 7. James's knowledge gives us a critical advantage there. I'm going with you, James stated, his tone leaving no room for argument. Logan studied his younger brother, still physically compromised, still healing from decades of abuse, yet with a determination that resonated with his own. That's not advisable from a medical standpoint. I know those facilities better than anyone, James countered. Know the captives, the security patterns, the research protocols, and I owe it to those still imprisoned to help free them. Martha interjected with professional authority. He's stronger than he looks. Werewolf healing is remarkable, especially in your bloodline. With proper preparation and support, I believe he could function effectively in a limited capacity. Logan recognized the truth in their arguments, weighing tactical advantage against concern for his recently recovered brother. The military commander in him acknowledged the value of James's first-hand knowledge, while the protective older sibling wanted to shield him from further trauma. Before he could respond, the treatment room door opened and Jack Monroe entered, his expression urgent. Alpha, we have a situation. Our perimeter sensors detected a breach at the north boundary. Security teams intercepted a lone human, a woman who claims to be a Chrysalis defector seeking asylum. Logan was immediately alert. Identification? Dr. Sophia Chen, according to her credentials, senior researcher from Facility 7. She's asking specifically to speak with you and the subject designated JB-117, which we assume means James. James's reaction was immediate and visceral. A sharp intake of breath, pupils dilating, heart rate spiking on the monitoring equipment. "Sophia," he whispered, the name carrying a complex weight of emotions. "She's here? You know her?" Logan asked, instantly wary. "She was my primary researcher for the past 5 years." James's voice had dropped to near whisper. "The only one who treated me as a person, not just a test subject. She helped me maintain my sanity, gave me information when she could do so safely." Logan and Alara exchanged glances, the blood moon bond allowing them to share concerns without words. The timing of this defection was suspicious, too convenient, too perfectly aligned with their nascent rescue plans. "It could be a trap," Logan said carefully, watching his brother's reaction. "Chrysalis may have sent her to gather intelligence or sabotage our operations. Or she could be genuine," Alara countered, ever the voice of balanced consideration. "If James established a connection with her, she might have reconsidered her role once she understood the full scope of Chrysalis's plans." James's expression had settled into something more controlled, though the elevated readings on the monitors betrayed his emotional state. Sophia had concerns about ethical boundaries long before the Blood Moon ceremony. She documented violations, preserved evidence. If she's defecting, she'll have brought that documentation with her. "Bring her to the secure interview room," Logan instructed Jack. "Full security protocols, no exceptions. I want her thoroughly searched for tracking devices, weapons, anything suspicious. And have Samuel prepare the truth verification ritual." As Jack departed to execute these orders, Logan turned back to his brother. "You understand why we need to be cautious?" James nodded. "Completely. But if it is Sophia, and if she's genuine, she could provide exactly what we need to bring down Chrysalis completely." "Then let's find out." Logan helped his brother stand, noting with approval that James's strength was indeed returning more rapidly than his appearance suggested. Werewolf resilience, combined with the Blackwood bloodline's particular vitality, was accelerating his physical recovery even as his psychological healing remained a longer journey. The secure interview room was located in the administrative wing, a space designed for sensitive pack matters with modern security features added during Richard Ironheart's tenure. Two-way observation glass, recording equipment, and subtle protective runes carved into the foundation made it both physically and supernaturally secure. Logan, Alara, and James observed from the adjacent room as security escorted Dr. Sophia Chen inside. She was a striking woman in her mid-30s, with straight black hair cut in a precise bob, sharp features, and the focused intensity of a dedicated scientist. Her business attire, charcoal skirt suit, sensible shoes, was rumpled from travel, and dark circles under her eyes suggested several sleepless nights. She carried herself with the controlled composure of someone accustomed to high-pressure situations, though the slight tremor in her hands as she set down her bag betrayed her anxiety. "She's brought documents," Alara noted, indicating the secure tablet and external drive Sophia had surrendered during the security check. "Significant amount of data." James couldn't take his eyes off the researcher, his expression a complex mixture of emotions Logan couldn't fully interpret. "She's lost weight," he murmured, "and she cut her hair. It was longer before." Logan studied the woman carefully, noting details that suggested her story might be genuine. The removal of a Chrysalis security badge had left a lighter patch on her lapel. Her shoes showed scuffing inconsistent with her otherwise meticulous appearance, suggesting hasty travel under difficult conditions. Most telling was the barely perceptible flinch when the door closed behind her, the reaction of someone who had recently escaped confinement and feared return. "I'll speak with her first," Logan decided. "Alone. James, I want you to observe her responses without her knowing you're here. Your insights will be valuable in assessing her truthfulness." James nodded, though reluctance was evident in his posture. "She'll respond better if she sees me, knows I'm safe. Which is precisely why we need to evaluate her reactions before that reunion," Logan countered gently. If she's genuine, you'll be reunited soon enough." Logan entered the interview room with the measured confidence of an alpha and the tactical awareness of a veteran soldier. Sophia Chen looked up sharply, her dark eyes assessing him with scientific precision. "Dr. Chen," Logan acknowledged, taking the seat across from her. "I'm Logan Ironheart, Alpha of Greyhaven Pack." "I know who you are," she replied, her voice steady despite her evident exhaustion. "Subject JB-117, James, spoke of you often when the neural suppressants allowed him moments of clarity." Logan noted her immediate reference to James, establishing their connection as her opening move. Calculated, but not necessarily deceptive. "Why are you here, Dr. Chen?" She met his gaze directly, unusual for a human facing an alpha werewolf, suggesting either remarkable courage or complete ignorance of werewolf social protocols. "Chrysalis is implementing Contingency Omega at all facilities containing werewolf subjects. Complete termination of the research program, elimination of all evidence, including test subjects." The clinical terminology couldn't disguise the horror of what she was describing, the planned execution of captive werewolves, including children. Logan maintained his composure with military discipline, though he sensed James's shock and rage through the observation glass. "When?" Logan asked simply. 48 hours from the order. The order was given yesterday morning." Sophia's professional demeanor cracked slightly, revealing genuine distress. I couldn't be part of that. I became a researcher to heal, to advance knowledge, not to execute innocent beings." "Yet you participated in their imprisonment and experimentation for years," Logan noted, his tone neutral but pointed. She didn't flinch from the accusation. "Yes, I justified it as necessary scientific advancement. Told myself the subjects were treated humanely within experimental parameters. Believed we were working toward breakthroughs that would benefit both species." Her hands clenched into fists on the table. "I was wrong. Profoundly, unforgivably wrong. I can't change that, but I can try to save those still alive." From the observation room, Elara whispered to James, "Her heart rate is elevated but steady. No signs of deception typically associated with lying. If she's being untruthful, she believes what she's saying." Logan continued the interview, methodically extracting details about Contingency Omega, facility layouts, security protocols, and the condition of captive werewolves. Sophia answered each question with precise detail, occasionally referencing the data she had brought. Her testimony aligned with James's information, but expanded it significantly, particularly regarding Chrysalis's government connections and corporate structure. "Edmund Blackwood's capture has destabilized the organization," she explained. "The board of directors is divided. Some want to continue operations at secure locations. Others advocate for complete shutdown and disappearance. Contingency Omega represents the latter faction gaining control." "And how did you escape?" Logan asked, identifying a potential weakness in her story. "Chrysalis security is notoriously thorough." For the first time, Sophia smiled faintly. "James wasn't the only one planning for contingencies. I've maintained emergency protocols for the past 18 months, secure identification, untraceable funds, escape routes. When the Contingency Omega order came down, I activated my backup plan, copied all the research data I could access, and left during shift change." "Remarkably smooth," Logan observed, skepticism evident. "Hardly." She pushed up her sleeve, revealing a healing gunshot wound on her upper arm, professionally dressed but clearly recent. "I had to shoot my way past the final checkpoint, lost my assistant in the process. Erica didn't make it." The grief in her voice at mentioning her assistant carried the ring of truth. In the observation room, James leaned forward, his expression softening. "She's telling the truth," he said quietly to Elara. "About Erica, at least. They were close. Erica helped her smuggle messages to me when the monitoring was heaviest." Logan had reached a similar conclusion based on Sophia's micro-expressions and physiological responses. The researcher might not be sharing everything, but her core story, Chrysalis implementing a termination protocol and her decision to defect, appeared genuine. "The data you brought," Logan said, gesturing to the secure tablet. What exactly does it contain? Everything, Sophia replied, intensity sharpening her features. Research protocols, subject records, financial transactions, board minutes, government contracts. Enough evidence to destroy Chrysalis completely, if leveraged properly. And what do you want in exchange for this information? Logan asked, cutting to the heart of the negotiation. Sophia straightened, marshalling her dignity despite her exhausted state. Asylum, protection from Chrysalis, who will have branded me a traitor, and— She hesitated. Confirmation that James is alive and recovering. I need to know he's safe. In the observation room, James made a decision. Before Alara could stop him, he opened the door connecting to the interview room and stepped inside. I'm here, Sophia. The researcher froze, her professional composure shattering completely at the sight of him. For a moment, she simply stared, eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and profound relief. Then, with visible effort, she restrained herself from moving toward him, respecting the security protocols still in effect. James, she whispered, the single word carrying emotions too complex for simple categorization. You're awake, truly awake. Thanks in part to you, he acknowledged, moving carefully to stand beside Logan. The meditation techniques you taught me, the information you smuggled, they helped me maintain enough of myself to recover once the controls were removed. Logan observed their interaction with keen attention, noting the unspoken communication between them, the kind that developed only through genuine connection over time. Whatever Sophia Chen's original intentions as a Chrysalis researcher, her relationship with James had clearly evolved beyond the clinical. Dr. Chen, Logan said, redirecting the conversation to urgent matters. If Contingency Omega is already in progress, we need to act immediately. You've provided valuable information, but verification takes time we may not have. There is a faster way, Alara spoke from the doorway, joining them in the interview room. If Dr. Chen consents. Sophia looked at the newcomer with curious assessment. You're the Omega librarian, except you're not just an Omega, are you? The readings during the Blood Moon ceremony showed energy patterns unlike anything in our database. Moonkeeper, Alara corrected gently. And yes, I can verify your intentions more directly than conventional methods. With your permission, I can read the truth of your statements through physical contact. Understanding dawned in Sophia's expression, the scientist recognizing an opportunity to prove herself definitively. The tactile memory ability mentioned in Edmund's restricted research, I always wondered if it was genuine. She extended her hands across the table. I consent. Read whatever you need to. Alara sat across from the researcher, placing her hands palms up on the table. This will be intense. I'll see not just surface thoughts, but deeper intentions, emotional context. Are you certain? Completely. Sophia placed her hands in Alara's without hesitation. I have nothing to hide. Not anymore. The connection formed instantly, Alara's eyes widening as information flowed between them. For several minutes, neither woman moved or spoke, locked in a silent communion that transcended verbal communication. Logan and James watched, sensing through their respective bonds with Alara the enormous effort the verification required. Finally, Alara withdrew her hands, looking pale but resolute. She's telling the truth. Contingency Omega is real. 17 werewolves at Facility 7 scheduled for termination within 36 hours now. Similar protocols at 5 other facilities, affecting a total of 43 captives. Logan didn't waste a moment. Jack, he called, knowing the beta waited just outside. Implement Operation Moonlight, Phase 1 acceleration. All reconnaissance teams deploy immediately. Target priorities revised. Facility 7 first, then the other containment centers in order of captive population. As Jack departed to execute these orders, Logan turned back to Sophia. You'll remain under protective custody until we confirm all details of your information. Your cooperation has been noted and will be considered when determining your longer-term status. The researcher nodded, professional enough to understand the precautions, even as her eyes repeatedly returned to James, as if reassuring herself of his presence. I anticipated nothing less. My security access codes are valid for another 18 hours before emergency protocols will change them. Use them quickly." Logan stood, decision made. "James, you'll work with the tactical team to integrate Dr. Chen's information with our existing intelligence. Alara, coordinate with Samuel on pack alliances. We'll need their forces deployed within 12 hours. I'll brief the Council on the accelerated timeline." As they prepared to depart, Sophia spoke once more. "There's something else you should know, something not in the files." Her expression turned grave. "Edmund Blackwood has a contingency of his own. If Chrysalis falls, he's prepared to activate what he calls the Omega Trigger, a dead man switch that would broadcast a signal activating all neural implants simultaneously. Every current and former test subject would be affected." James paled visibly. "Including me." "Your implant removal surgery? How much remains?" Logan asked urgently. "2 more devices, scheduled for removal tomorrow and the day after," Martha answered from the doorway, having arrived to monitor James's condition. "The Omega Trigger targets the central neural implant specifically," Sophia explained. "The one attached directly to the brainstem. Has it been removed?" Martha shook her head. "That's tomorrow's procedure, the most delicate of the 3. The implications hung heavily in the air. Operation Moonlight needed to proceed immediately to save dozens of captive werewolves from execution, yet doing so might trigger Blackwood's failsafe, potentially killing or incapacitating James and any other former test subjects with remaining implants. "Perform the surgery now," James said firmly, breaking the tense silence. "Immediately, then launch the operation." "Accelerating the procedure carries significant risks," Martha cautioned. "We planned a careful approach for good reason." "There's no choice," James insisted. "I won't be the reason other captives die, and I'm not the only former subject with implants who's managed to escape over the years. The Omega Trigger could affect dozens worldwide." Logan felt the weight of command, the impossible decisions that came with leadership. As Alpha, the choice was ultimately his, balancing his brother's life against those of strangers, immediate action against prudent preparation. "How long would the accelerated procedure take?" he asked Martha. 4 hours minimum," the healer replied, "and recovery afterward before he could possibly join any operation." Logan nodded, decision crystallizing. "We proceed on parallel tracks. Martha, prepare for immediate surgery with your best team. James, you'll provide all critical intelligence to the tactical planners before entering surgery. Alara, work with Samuel to alert other packs about the Omega Trigger. Any who have recovered members from Chrysalis need to implement protective measures." He turned to Sophia. "Dr. Chen, you'll assist Martha with the surgical procedure. Your knowledge of the implant design could prove crucial." "Of course," she agreed immediately. "I've observed similar removals during my tenure. I can help identify critical connection points." The room emptied quickly as each person moved to their assigned tasks with urgent purpose. Logan remained briefly, studying the map that now displayed all known Chrysalis facilities. The largest challenge of his military career lay before him, a coordinated assault on multiple heavily secured locations against an enemy with government connections and technological advantages, with lives hanging in the balance. Yet for the first time in decades, he felt not just determination, but rightness. This was what he had trained for, what his bloodline had prepared him to face, not merely as a soldier, but as an alpha protecting his kind from those who would exploit and destroy them. Through the blood-moon bond, he sensed Alara's presence approaching before she entered the room. She moved to stand beside him, her steady calm balancing his focused intensity. "James will survive the procedure," she said with quiet certainty. "I've seen it." Logan glanced at her. "Another Moonkeeper ability you haven't mentioned?" A small smile touched her lips. "Not precognition, if that's what you're thinking, but I can sense outcomes when they align with deeper patterns. James's path isn't finished yet." Logan nodded, finding comfort in her certainty where logic offered only probabilities and risks. The blood-moon bond between them had become a source of strength he hadn't known was missing. Alpha power guided by Moonkeeper wisdom, just as the ancient texts had described. "We face impossible odds," he acknowledged, studying the tactical overlay. "Even with allied packs, we're outnumbered and outgunned." Good thing werewolves have never relied solely on numbers or conventional weapons, Ilara replied. From her pocket, she withdrew the moon shard, its inner light pulsing gently in response to her touch. The ancients faced similar threats and developed defenses beyond physical strength. I've been translating the protective rituals from the oldest texts. Logan studied the crystal, recognizing its significance not as a mythical object, but as a tool, one of many their ancestors had created to protect pack and territory. How many of these ancient defenses can we implement in 12 hours? Enough, Ilara said simply. The moon shard amplifies what already exists in each werewolf. Our connection to territory, to pack bonds, to the primal energies that fuel our transformations. With proper guidance, it can enhance strength, speed healing, even shield minds from external influence. She met his gaze directly, confidence in her blue eyes. We're not just fighting with teeth and claws, Logan. We're fighting with the collective strength of generations of werewolves who faced extinction and survived. That legacy flows in our blood, yours, mine, every pack member who stands with us. Logan felt the truth of her words resonating through their bond. For 25 years, he had denied his heritage, viewing it as burden rather than birthright. Now, facing humanity's most sophisticated attempt to subjugate their kind, he recognized that denying either aspect of himself, soldier or werewolf, had been the true weakness. Then we use everything, he decided. Modern tactics and ancient magic, military precision and primal strength. His hand covered hers over the moon shard, their combined touch causing the crystal's light to intensify. Chrysalis sought to control what they don't understand. They're about to discover why that's always been a fatal mistake. As the light of the setting sun streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across the tactical maps, Alpha and Moonkeeper stood united, embodiments of a balance long forgotten, now restored at the moment of greatest need. Beyond the walls of the compound, pack members prepared for battle, allies converged from distant territories, and the ancient magic of their kind stirred in response to imminent threat. The countdown to Operation Moonlight had begun. The pre-dawn darkness shrouded Facility 7 in deceptive tranquility. Nestled in the Colorado mountains, its modern exterior resembled a pharmaceutical research center, all glass and polished steel gleaming in the moonlight. Security lighting cast pools of harsh illumination across the perimeter, where armed guards patrolled with military precision. To human observers, it appeared merely well protected. To werewolf senses, it reeked of suffering. Logan Ironheart surveyed the compound from a ridge half a mile distant, enhanced vision picking out details invisible to ordinary sight. Jack Monroe crouched beside him, coordinating communications with 4 other strike teams positioned strategically around the facility. In the hours since accelerating Operation Moonlight, they had mobilized with remarkable efficiency. 60 werewolves from Greyhaven and allied packs, all combat-trained, all understanding the stakes. "Perimeter team reports standard patrol patterns," Jack murmured, hand pressed to his tactical earpiece. "No indication they've detected our presence." Logan nodded, attention fixed on the facility's main entrance where a security checkpoint processed the pre-dawn shift change. Sophia Chen's intelligence had been precise. 3 guards at the gate, camera coverage with predicted blind spots, electronic locks requiring specific credentials. The plan hinged on exploiting these details before Chrysalis could alter their security protocols. "Alpha team in position," came the quiet confirmation through their secure channel. "Beta and Delta teams confirm ready status." Logan felt the weight of the medallion against his chest, warm and responsive to his heightened emotions. The alpha power that had fully awakened during the blood moon had integrated with his military training, creating a hybrid strength, disciplined yet primal, calculated yet instinctive. "Martha reports successful completion of James's surgery," Jack added. "He's stable, neural implant fully removed, recovery proceeding faster than expected." Relief washed through Logan. One critical concern resolved. His brother was safe from the Omega trigger, whatever happened next. He allowed himself a moment to acknowledge the emotion before refocusing on the mission. "Moonkeeper team status?" he asked, though he could sense Alara's general location through their bond. "In position at the northwestern access point," Jack confirmed, "ready to implement the protective rituals once entry is secured." Logan checked his watch, 4:27 a.m., 3 minutes until coordinated assault. He performed a final equipment check: tactical gear modified for werewolf physiology, specialized weapons designed to incapacitate rather than kill whenever possible, communication devices secured against chrysalis countermeasures. "All teams," he spoke into his comm unit, voice calm and authoritative. "Mission parameters unchanged. Primary objective: secure and extract captive werewolves. Secondary: recover research data and evidence. Minimal casualties. Remember, many personnel are unaware of Chrysalis's true nature." Acknowledgements came in from all teams, determination evident even in their brief responses. These weren't just soldiers following orders. They were pack members fighting to save their own kind from exploitation and execution. 60 seconds, Jack announced. Logan felt his wolf stirring beneath his skin, responding to the imminent conflict. Unlike previous transformations, where control required constant effort, the awakened alpha power allowed perfect harmony between human tactical thinking and wolf instincts. He could access either strength as needed, shifting partially or completely with unprecedented precision. 30 seconds. In the valley below, the facility continued its normal operations, unaware of the storm about to break upon it. Somewhere within those walls, 17 werewolves awaited execution, the countdown to contingency Omega ticking relentlessly forward. "Execute," Logan commanded as his watch display hit 4:30 a.m. The operation unfolded with coordinated precision. 2 maintenance vehicles approached the main gate, driven by pack members using credentials Sophia had provided. As security processed their arrival, Delta Team disabled the external power grid with a precisely targeted electromagnetic pulse, plunging the facility into momentary darkness before emergency generators engaged. In those critical seconds of confusion, Alpha and Beta teams breached the perimeter at predetermined points, moving with supernatural speed to secure key access nodes. Logan led Gamma Team down the ridge and across the cleared ground surrounding the facility, exploiting the camera blind spots Sophia had identified. They reached the northwestern service entrance as planned, where Alara waited with 3 other werewolves. The Moonkeeper wore tactical gear like the others, but carried additional equipment: ancient symbols drawn on parchment, small pouches of ritual components, and most importantly, the moon shard secured in a specially designed harness at her waist. "Status?" Logan asked as they joined forces. "Perimeter wards established," Alara replied, her calm demeanor belying the intensity in her blue eyes. "They'll prevent any external communications from reaching Edmund Blackwood's Deadman switch." Logan nodded, appreciating once again how their complementary approaches strengthened the operation. His tactical plan provided the framework. Her ancient knowledge protected against supernatural threats conventional military thinking couldn't address. "Service entrance secure," Jack reported as his team neutralized the guards, tranquilizers rather than lethal force, as ordered, proceeding to primary access control. The assault moved into its second phase. As teams penetrated deeper into the facility, resistance intensified. Chrysalis security forces were well-trained professionals with advanced equipment, including specialized weapons designed specifically against werewolves. Silver-edged projectiles, ultraviolet flashes that disrupted transformation abilities, sound generators that targeted enhanced hearing. Logan led from the front, decades of military experience guiding his tactical decisions, while alpha strength bolstered his physical capabilities. When conventional approaches failed, he shifted partially, just enough to utilize claws, strength, and speed while maintaining human cognition. His team followed his example, adapting fluidly between human and wolf tactics as the situation demanded. They fought their way to the central security hub, where Jack's technical specialists took control of the facility's systems. Surveillance feeds revealed the full scope of Chrysalis operations. Laboratories where scientists in white coats worked with tissue samples and genetic material. Training areas where controlled werewolves performed physical tests, and most disturbingly, the containment level where captives were held in specialized cells. Found them, Jack announced, highlighting a section on the basement level. 17 captives as reported, including 3 juveniles. Life signs stable, but readings show they've been sedated, probably preparation for termination. Logan studied the layout, quickly formulating the extraction approach. Delta Team, secure the route from containment to extraction point. Beta Team, maintain perimeter control. Alpha Team, with me to retrieve captives. Logan, Alara interrupted, her focus on a different monitor. Research level, Section C. They've initiated data purging protocols. Critical evidence is being destroyed. The conflict was immediate. Captives versus evidence, lives versus justice. Logan made the decision without hesitation. Alpha Team continues to containment. Alara, take your team to secure the research data. Jack, coordinate from here. As they separated, Logan felt the blood moon bond stretch between them, not weakening, but extending, maintaining their connection across physical distance. Through it, he sensed Alara's determined focus, her moonkeeper abilities fully engaged as she navigated the scientific heart of chrysalis operations. The journey to the containment level required fighting through increasingly desperate security forces. These weren't the perimeter guards with limited knowledge of Chrysalis's true purpose. These were dedicated operatives fully aware of what they protected. They fought with the determination of those who understood the consequences of failure. Logan's team suffered injuries but continued advancing, werewolf healing compensating for wounds that would have stopped human soldiers. They reached the containment level to find additional security measures, biometric locks, chemical deterrents designed specifically against werewolf senses, and automated defense systems. Sophia's access codes are still working, reported Lisa Fletcher, a beta werewolf operating the security terminal. Bypassing primary locks now. The containment cells lined a long corridor, each a self-contained unit with transparent walls, allowing observation from all angles. Inside each, a werewolf lay on a medical bed, some adults in various states of physical condition, and most heartbreaking, 3 children between approximately 6 and 10 years old. All were unconscious, intravenous lines delivering sedatives as precursors to the planned termination. Medical team, assess and prepare for transport, Logan ordered, his voice steady despite the rage building within him at the clinical dehumanization before him. Security, establish defensive perimeter. Expect counterattack once they realize what we're doing. As his team moved with practiced efficiency, Logan approached the nearest cell containing an older male werewolf. According to the digital display, his designation was Subject WR089. No name, no identity beyond his experimental value. Restraints secured him to the bed despite his unconscious state, and monitoring equipment tracked every bodily function with dispassionate precision. The alpha within Logan roared with protective fury. These were his people, not just Greyhaven Pack, but werewolves who deserved the dignity of their heritage rather than exploitation as laboratory specimens. The soldier in him channeled that rage into focused action, methodically checking each captive as his team prepared them for evacuation. The medical team worked rapidly, disconnecting monitoring equipment, neutralizing sedatives with counteragents, and stabilizing each captive for transportation. The children received particular attention, their small bodies showing signs of accelerated development procedures, ethical boundaries crossed in pursuit of scientific advancement. Alpha, Jack's voice came through the comm unit, tension evident. Security forces regrouping for counterattack, estimated 2 minutes before they breach our defensive positions. Understood. Status of extraction route? Delta team maintaining control, but encountering heavy resistance. Facility director has activated contingency protocols, all research staff evacuating via secondary routes. Logan processed this tactically. The captives were their priority, but with research staff evacuating, critical witnesses and perpetrators might escape justice. Before he could formulate a response, Ilara's voice came through the channel. Research level secured, she reported. We've stopped the data purge and downloaded critical files. Evidence preserved includes video documentation of experiments, financial records, and government contracts. Relief mingled with renewed determination. With evidence secured, they could proceed with full focus on extracting the captives. "Prepare all subjects for immediate evacuation," Logan ordered. "We move in 90 seconds." As the team disconnected the final monitoring systems and prepared the captives for transport, Logan felt a subtle shift through the blood moon bond. Alarm from Alara, followed by intense concentration. "Logan," her voice came urgently through the comm, "we've discovered an active neural transmitter in the research lab. It's broadcasting on the omega trigger frequency, but localized. I believe they're testing the system in preparation for full deployment." "Can you disable it?" Logan demanded, immediately concerned for James and any other former captives with neural implants. "Working on it," she replied. "But there's more." Edmund Blackwood left a recorded message for facility leadership. The Omega Trigger isn't just designed to incapacitate subjects with implants. It's meant to activate a secondary protocol in all werewolves who've been exposed to their experimental compounds, including temporary strength enhancers used by their security forces. The implications hit Logan immediately. Chrysalis had created a biological backdoor into werewolf physiology, a means of control extending beyond their direct test subjects to potentially hundreds who had unknowingly been exposed through various means. "How far can it reach?" he asked, tactical mind already calculating expanded threats. "Unknown, but the equipment here suggests significant range." The message indicates Blackwood planned this as mutually assured destruction. If Chrysalis falls, he intended to trigger werewolf berserker states in populated areas, exposing our kind and creating public terror. Logan's decision was immediate. Maintain evacuation of captives. Alara, your team's new primary objective is neutralizing that transmitter and any backup systems. Use whatever means necessary. Through their bond, he felt her acknowledgement. Not just obedience to command, but shared understanding of the stakes. The blood moon bond allowed communication beyond words, tactical synchronization that transcended conventional leadership. As the medical team prepared to move the captives, the first conscious ones began stirring, confusion giving way to hope as they realized their rescuers were fellow werewolves. Logan approached a middle-aged woman who had awakened, her eyes wary but determined despite years of captivity. "I'm Logan Ironheart, Alpha of Greyhaven Pack," he introduced himself simply. "We're here to bring you home." "There are others," she whispered, voice hoarse from disuse. "Other facilities, dozens more like us." "We know," he assured her. "Simultaneous operations are underway at all Chrysalis containment centers. No one gets left behind." Tears formed in her eyes. Not weakness, but release after years of hopelessness. Logan felt the instinctive alpha urge to comfort, to protect, channeling it into renewed resolve as they prepared for the most dangerous phase of the operation, extraction through hostile territory. The evacuation proceeded under increasingly heavy opposition. Chrysalis security forces, recognizing the full scope of the breach, had abandoned defensive tactics in favor of all-out assault. Logan's team formed a protective formation around the captives, those strong enough to walk supporting those still partially sedated, with the children carried by the most powerful fighters. They fought their way upward through the facility, coordinating with other teams to clear paths and neutralize resistance. Logan remained at the front, using his alpha strength and military expertise to maximum effect. When conventional tactics faltered, he shifted partially or fully as needed, his control now so precise that transformation became simply another tactical option rather than an all-consuming change. Through the blood moon bond, he maintained awareness of Alara's progress with the neural transmitter. Her team had secured the broadcast equipment and was working to not only disable it, but reverse engineer its functionality, turning Chrysalis's weapon against itself by broadcasting a stabilizing frequency that would protect werewolves from the Omega Trigger rather than activate it. The operation reached its critical juncture as Logan's team approached the main extraction point, a loading dock where transport vehicles waited to evacuate the captives to safety. Between them and escape stood the heaviest concentration of Chrysalis security, led by a commander who showed signs of enhanced strength, likely one of their experimental subjects. "Final push," Logan announced to his team. "Protective formation, prioritize captive safety over engagement. On my signal." Before he could give the order, the facility's lighting fluctuated, emergency systems cycling as something interfered with their power regulation. Through their bond, Logan sensed Alara's triumphant determination. "Neural transmitter reprogrammed," her voice confirmed through the comm. "Broadcasting protective frequency now. All werewolves within range should be shielded from the Omega trigger. Additionally, we've accessed the facility's environmental systems. Prepare for tactical advantage in 30 seconds. Logan understood immediately. "All werewolves, filtering protocols," he ordered, referring to the breathing technique that allowed them to minimize effects of airborne contaminants. "Captives, cover your faces." 30 seconds later, the ventilation system released a compound into the air. Not harmful, but disorienting to the enhanced senses of Chrysalis's security forces, who had been dosed with werewolf-derived compounds without the natural filtering abilities of true werewolves. The effect was immediate, their coordinated defense faltering as sensory overload compromised their effectiveness. "Now," Logan commanded, leading the charge through the disoriented security forces. The final confrontation was brief but intense. Despite their compromised state, Chrysalis security fought with the desperation of those who knew failure meant more than defeat. It meant exposure, prosecution, the end of their organization. The commander in particular demonstrated enhanced strength and resilience beyond human norms, engaging Logan directly while his forces attempted to block the captive's escape. Logan recognized the experimental modifications in his opponent. Muscle density increased beyond natural limits, reaction time enhanced through chemical means, aggression amplified to near berserker levels. These were the fruits of Chrysalis research, human soldiers enhanced with stolen werewolf traits without the balance and control that came from natural werewolf physiology. The fight between them became a symbolic confrontation. Natural werewolf prowess against its artificial replication. Authentic alpha power against its manufactured approximation. Logan could have ended it quickly with lethal force, but chose restraint instead, demonstrating the control and discipline that separated true werewolves from Chrysalis's creations. When the commander finally fell, unconscious but alive, Logan gave the final extraction order. The captives were loaded into the waiting vehicles, medical teams continuing treatment as they prepared for the journey to Greyhaven's healing facilities. Delta Team secured the perimeter, while Beta Team completed downloading the last critical evidence from Chrysalis systems. Alara joined Logan at the extraction point, the moon shard at her waist pulsing with subdued light, its energy partially depleted from powering the protective rituals she had implemented throughout the operation. Despite physical exhaustion, her blue eyes remained clear and focused, Moonkeeper abilities fully engaged as she monitored the invisible currents of energy surrounding them. "The neural transmitter has been permanently disabled," she reported, "and we've encoded the protective frequency into a portable device that can shield any former captives we encounter. The data we've recovered includes complete records of all experimental subjects, names, locations, conditions." Logan nodded, recognizing the significance of this intelligence for the broader mission of locating and helping all werewolves Chrysalis had exploited. "Facility status? Secured. Research staff taken into custody, administrative personnel contained. We've identified 3 senior directors with direct knowledge of Contingency Omega. They'll face packed justice alongside Victoria and Raymond." As the last captives were loaded for transport, Logan surveyed the facility that had caused so much suffering. Dawn was breaking over the mountains, symbolic timing for the liberation occurring within these walls. Years of captivity ended, lives reclaimed, futures restored. Not complete healing, for some wounds would never fully disappear, but the beginning of recovery. "All teams, mission complete," he announced over the secure channel. "Begin synchronized withdrawal. Maintain security protocols until reaching safe zones." Reports came in from the other operational teams targeting different Chrysalis facilities. Similar success at varying levels, with all captives secured and evidence preserved. No casualties among the rescued werewolves, minimal losses among the assault teams, objectives accomplished beyond initial expectations. As they prepared to depart, one of the rescued children, a girl no more than 7 years old, approached Logan, her small frame showing signs of the accelerated growth procedures Chrysalis had inflicted, but her eyes clear and evaluating in a way that spoke of innate intelligence. "Are you really an alpha?" she asked, voice small but steady. Logan knelt to her level, setting aside the tactical commander to connect with the child as she needed. "Yes, I am." "They told us alphas would never come," she said, solemn and direct in the way only children can be. "That we were forgotten." "You were never forgotten," Logan assured her, feeling the truth of it in his bones. "And you never will be again." The child studied him with that penetrating gaze that reminded him of Alara, looking beyond surface to essence. After a moment, she seemed satisfied with what she found, and nodded once before returning to the medical team caring for her. The convoy departed as the sun crested the mountains, leaving behind a chrysalis facility that would never again imprison werewolves for experimentation. Similar scenes played out across the country as Operation Moonlight completed its primary objective: the liberation of all known captives and the preservation of evidence that would bring their captors to justice. The journey back to Greyhaven Valley allowed Logan time for reflection. The military commander in him assessed the operation clinically. Objectives achieved, acceptable casualty levels, intelligence secured. But the alpha in him recognized deeper significance: pack protecting pack across traditional boundaries, ancient knowledge combining with modern tactics, werewolves reclaiming their heritage while adapting to contemporary challenges. Beside him, Ilara had finally succumbed to exhaustion, sleeping while the moonshard recharged in its protective case. The blood moon bond between them hummed with quiet contentment despite their physical fatigue, a connection that had proven instrumental to their success, balancing his decisive action with her profound understanding, his strength with her wisdom. They arrived at Greyhaven as evening approached, the compound transformed from ceremonial center to medical facility in their absence. Martha Fletcher had prepared for the influx of rescued werewolves, converting the Great Hall into a treatment area with specialized equipment for addressing the unique damage Chrysalis had inflicted. James was waiting for them, standing without assistance, despite having undergone major surgery less than 24 hours earlier. Werewolf healing, combined with the Blackwood bloodline's particular resilience, had accelerated his recovery beyond conventional expectations. Though still thin and bearing the scars of his captivity, his eyes showed clarity and purpose that spoke of healing beyond the physical. "They're all safe," Logan confirmed as his brother approached. "All 17 from Facility 7, plus 26 more from other locations. The children are responding well to treatment." Relief washed across James's features, responsibility for fellow captives having weighed on him even during his own recovery. "And the Omega trigger?" "Neutralized," Ilara answered, rousing from sleep as they arrived. "We've developed a protective frequency that shields against it, and disabled Blackwood's primary transmission equipment. Other teams are locating and disabling backup systems based on intelligence we recovered." The reunited brothers watched as medical teams unloaded the rescued captives, guiding them toward the healing facilities with gentle efficiency. For many, this represented their first experience of pack care rather than clinical processing. Being treated as individuals rather than subjects, their dignity restored alongside their freedom. "The council is assembled." Samuel Jackson approached, his weathered face showing signs of the strain these events had placed on him. "They await your report, Alpha." Logan nodded, straightening despite his exhaustion. Leadership demanded presence even when fatigue pulled at body and mind. "Have them prepare for a fuller briefing tomorrow. Tonight, I'll provide essentials only. Our priority remains the care of those we've rescued." "And the stones?" Samuel asked, referring to Victoria and Raymond, still held in secured quarters. "Their judgment comes after we've secured all former captives," Logan decided. "Justice requires completion, not haste." The council chamber reflected the changing nature of pack leadership. The traditional circle now expanded to include voices previously excluded. Beyond the 18 permanent members, representatives from allied packs attended this session, acknowledging the unprecedented cooperation that had made Operation Moonlight successful. Logan stood before them not as a returning exile, but as their alpha, the medallion at his throat glowing softly with the power fully integrated into his being. Beside him stood Alara, her position as lead moonkeeper now recognized even by those who had initially resisted the concept. The blood moon bond between them was visible to werewolf senses, a golden thread of connection that represented the restoration of ancient balance. Operation Moonlight has achieved its primary objectives, Logan reported, his military precision delivering essential information without embellishment. All known werewolf captives have been rescued from chrysalis facilities. Critical evidence has been secured that will support both pack justice and, where appropriate, human legal proceedings against those responsible. He detailed the operation's key outcomes, acknowledging the contributions of each pack and honoring those who had sustained injuries in the process. 3 werewolves had given their lives in the assault, losses that weighed heavily on him as commander, but which had prevented far greater casualties among the captives. The immediate threat has been neutralized, he continued, but our work has just begun. The rescued werewolves require extensive healing, physical, psychological, and spiritual. Many have been captive for years, some for decades. Some, like the children, have never known freedom or pack life. Alara stepped forward, her quiet authority complementing Logan's commanding presence. Beyond physical healing, they need reintegration into pack society, learning traditions, understanding their heritage, developing control over abilities that have been manipulated for others' purposes. This represents both challenge and opportunity for all packs. The Council responded with unanimous support for providing whatever resources were needed, a unity rarely seen in pack politics. The shared enemy had fostered cooperation beyond traditional boundaries, perhaps the first positive legacy to emerge from Chrysalis's dark history. As the session concluded, Logan addressed the final matter requiring immediate attention. Edmund Blackwood remains in custody at a secure location, separated from Victoria and Raymond Stone. His knowledge of chrysalis operations makes him valuable for intelligence purposes, but his crimes against werewolf kind demand ultimate justice. The ancient laws are clear, Samuel stated gravely. Those who betray their kind to humans for exploitation face execution. A heavy silence fell across the chamber. Despite the justice in such a sentence, executing Edmund Blackwood would end a bloodline, the same Blackwood heritage that flowed in Logan and James's veins. The ancient laws were written in different times, Alara observed, her moonkeeper perspective offering alternative wisdom. When exposure meant extinction for our kind, the modern world offers different challenges and different possibilities for justice. Logan considered this carefully, weighing traditional pack law against evolving circumstances. Edmund Blackwood will face judgment before a council of all affected packs. His fate will reflect not just ancient law, but our vision for werewolf justice in the modern era. We will be neither vengeful nor lenient, but measured in our response. This approach, balancing tradition with adaptation, characterized Logan's emerging leadership style, not rejecting pack heritage as he once had, nor clinging blindly to customs that no longer served, but finding the core principles that remained valid, while adapting their application to contemporary challenges. As the council dispersed, Logan and Alara made their way to the healing center, where the rescued captives were receiving treatment. Martha Fletcher approached them, medical charts in hand, but compassion in her eyes beyond clinical assessment. "They're stabilizing well," she reported. "Physically, at least. The children show remarkable resilience. Their accelerated development has some concerning aspects, but also grants them healing capabilities beyond normal parameters." "And the adults?" Logan asked. Martha's expression sobered. "Varied conditions. Some were recent acquisitions, their trauma primarily physical. Others have been captive for years with deeper psychological impact. James has been invaluable. His experience helps them process their own." Inside the converted Great Hall, medical teams worked alongside pack healers, combining modern treatment with traditional werewolf healing practices. James moved among the patients, connecting with each through shared experience, offering hope through his own recovery. The children, especially, responded to his gentle approach, perhaps sensing the authenticity of someone who truly understood their ordeal. One particular scene caught Logan's attention. James sitting beside the young girl who had spoken to Logan earlier, showing her how to control the accelerated shifting ability Chrysalis had forced upon her. With patient guidance, he demonstrated the techniques that had helped him maintain his core self through years of experimentation. "He's found his purpose," Alara observed quietly, standing beside Logan as they watched this interaction. "Sometimes healing comes through helping others heal." Logan nodded, recognizing the truth in her words. James would never fully recover what Chrysalis had stolen from him. 20 years of freedom, of normal development, of pack connection. But in helping these children reclaim their future, he was reclaiming aspects of his own. As evening deepened toward night, the activity in the healing center gradually quieted. Those requiring intensive care remained under Martha's supervision, while others were settled in prepared accommodations throughout the compound. The Greyhaven pack had opened their homes and hearts to the rescued werewolves, another sign of the changing dynamics within their society. Logan and Alara finally retreated to the Alpha residence, both physically exhausted, but mentally still processing the day's events. The blood moon bond between them had matured through shared challenge, becoming a foundation of strength rather than a new discovery. They stood together on the balcony overlooking the valley, watching as pack members moved purposefully through the compound, continuing preparations, maintaining security, ensuring comfort for their rescued kin. The scene reflected what Logan had envisioned when he finally accepted his heritage. Not a pack defined by rigid hierarchy and tradition alone, but a community adapting to modern challenges while honoring its essential nature. "What happens now?" Alara asked, giving voice to the question that hung between them. Logan considered this, his gaze moving to the distant mountains where Greyhaven territory met neighboring lands. "We continue. Dismantle remaining Chrysalis infrastructure. Help those we've rescued rebuild their lives. Strengthen alliances with other packs. Adapt our society to face whatever comes next." "The Council is already discussing permanent changes to pack structure," Alara noted. "The restoration of moonkeepers. Greater inclusion of all ranks in decision-making. Formal alliances beyond territorial boundaries. Changes that should have happened generations ago," Logan acknowledged. "Perhaps this crisis was the catalyst needed to overcome centuries of inertia." The moon shard, safely secured in its protective case nearby, pulsed gently with renewed energy, responding to their conversation about pack future as if the ancient artifact itself approved of this evolution. Alara had explained that the crystal served as both tool and record, accumulating the collective wisdom and experiences of generations of werewolves. "The ancients would recognize what we're building," she said, her hand finding his as they stood together. "Not because it preserves everything unchanged, but because it honors the core purpose of pack: protection, belonging, balance between strength and wisdom." Logan squeezed her hand gently, the blood moon bond between them brightening at the contact. "Not what I expected when I answered my father's summons." A smile touched her lips. "Not what either of us expected, but perhaps what both of us needed." Below them, the pack continued its activities, adapting to this new chapter in their history. Children rescued from Chrysalis were already being integrated with pack young ones, forming connections that transcended their different origins. Former captives with specialized knowledge were consulting with Martha's medical team, turning their painful experiences into insights that would help others heal. James had emerged from the healing center, moving with increasing strength as his recovery accelerated. Even at a distance, the change in him was visible: purpose replacing vacancy, determination overcoming trauma, the Blackwood resilience reasserting itself after decades of suppression. The three Blackwood descendants, Logan, James, and Edmund, represented different paths the same bloodline could take: protection, resilience, and corruption. The choice between these paths, Logan reflected, came not from destiny, but from decision, countless small choices that accumulated into fundamental character. As the moon rose over Greyhaven Valley, no longer the blood moon but still carrying its subtle influence, Logan felt the weight of leadership settle into something sustainable. Not a burden to be escaped as he had once believed, nor a right to be claimed without responsibility, but a role to be fulfilled with both strength and wisdom, both modern perspective and ancient heritage. The throne of the pack awaited its alpha not as a seat of solitary power, but as the center of a complex web of responsibilities, relationships, and possibilities. With Alara beside him, Moonkeeper to his alpha, wisdom to his strength, Logan Ironheart prepared to claim that throne fully, not for power's sake, but for the future of all werewolf kind. The challenges ahead remained substantial: healing the rescued, delivering justice to the guilty, reforming pack structure, protecting against future threats. But for the first time in generations, werewolves faced these challenges united rather than isolated, adaptive rather than rigid, balancing tradition with evolution. As Logan and Alara turned from the balcony to face whatever tomorrow would bring, the blood moon bond between them shimmered with possibility. Alpha and Moonkeeper, soldier and scholar, strength and wisdom reunited at last. The ancient balance restored, not as an ending, but as a beginning. The throne of the pack awaited, and this time, Logan was ready.